rumble strip, so between Paradise Valley and Spaghetti Junction. Expect the inbound side to get heavy, and then a little bit later the outbound side will start to backlog as you head out, and it'll just increasingly get busier through the day and really peak with some heavy stuff during the afternoon rush hour. Cape Town's Dunoon area, Malabongwe already slow down towards the N7. It appears that the road has been reopened after some protesting yesterday and overnight last night, but you might want to just avoid it. If you are avoiding it, just give yourself extra time to reroute through potentially busy routes around the Tableview area and the M7. Adam Mitchell's playing queuing up this morning. Traffic all the way through from Morgansteer up to Samora Michelle. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Tuesday, the 13th of May, 2025 has dawned. The world you are waking up to today is not the same as it was when you went to bed last night. That's why we are here to fully brief you on all the news and current affairs events that have shaped, reshaped, and will continue to move the needle in your world as your day unfolds. Hey, good morning, folks. This is the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Here, then, are some of the highlights contained in your brief. Remember what I just said a few seconds ago about the world is not the same as it was when you went to bed last night? Well, we're going to have some breaking news this morning. The National Prosecuting Authority coming through with a statement in the last few minutes, literally the last few minutes, saying that the NPA's Director of Public Prosecutions in the Eastern Cape, Mr. Barry Madolo, has decided to appeal the judgment of the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court in Gqeberha, delivered by Judge Irma Skuman on the 2nd of April 2025, relating to the case against Timothy Omotosho and two others. The decision follows a thorough consideration of the matter by the NPA's internal team of experienced prosecutors, as well as a legal opinion sourced from senior counsel. So that is the news coming through literally in the last few minutes. In the second hour of the show, then, I'll be in conversation with Mthunzi Maga right at the top of the hour 7. Mthunzi Maga, of course, speaks on behalf of the NPA. They'll be explaining how they came to this decision that they're going to appeal the judgment that acquitted Timothy Omotosho of all charges. So news just in, the NPA will be appealing that acquittal of the televangelist Timothy Omotosho. Then, moving on to other news then, to wealth tax or not to wealth tax? That is the question as Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana prepares to give it a go once again in his effort to finally table a credible budget that will receive Parliament's endorsement. The EFF and MK party want him to raise the required revenue to fund the budget by taxing the wealthy more, including on underutilized land and apartheid-era trusts, at least according to the EFF's proposal of the wealth tax. Well, the minister has answered the question and answered it in the negative, saying that a wealth tax is out of the question as far as the minister is concerned. Enoch Godongwana warning that a wealth tax could lead to decreased savings, capital flight, and a reduction in local investment and jobs. At about 10 to 7 this morning, I'll be in conversation with Azza Jamin, the economist, who will be my guest, unpacking it all. Because part of the argument from Minister Godongwana is that there already exists a number of taxes that, when put together, amount to a wealth tax, and to simply come up with another wealth tax now would lead to the consequences that I've just outlined: capital flight, a reduction in investment, as well as a reduction in savings. So that conversation with Azza Jamin to unpack it all, that's coming up at about 10 to 7. Then the third story I want to flag for you very quickly. Remember when the Trump administration's freeze on all aid, including the funding of the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, that is known as PEPFAR, we were told not to worry because South Africa funds much of its HIV/AIDS treatment programs from the national fiscus. Well, a few months into the funding freeze, and at least one expert at the coalface of the fight against HIV and AIDS is warning that we risk unraveling the remarkable progress that we had made over the past decade and a half on HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment programs. Professor Francois Venter says he is already seeing evidence of that in the areas where he works, saying NGO-led clinics are closing, ARV stockouts are emerging, and thousands of workers have been retrenched, and saying that despite these urgent warnings, the national government has yet to deliver a clear rescue strategy. Professor Francois Venter will speak to me at about 9:15 this morning. So, of course, the Morning Brief team ready and on standby with all of your updates once again this morning. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne on your traffic. Zaikan is watching your sports. Melissa Buta with the Morning Brief in brief, and that's coming up in the next few minutes. Ndauleng Lechela has your business and market updates covered, as well as Sipho Mandula with your Africa update at about 7 this morning. Through it all, weigh in on all of these conversations. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes and I'll play them out and engage and interact with them. The number to send those to is 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X, SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram, and as always, we are live on our YouTube channel, SAFM Radio. So that's how it's looking this morning. Let's get it started.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene, along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the Morning Brief.
At 14 minutes after 6, let's give you your morning brief in brief with Melissa Buta. Melissa, good morning. We start with news coming out of the Department of Health in light of these developments around tiger brands and the Listeriosis outbreak of 2017. What's the department saying?
Morning, Thulasizwe. So this is a big development. The Department of Health has welcomed Tiger Brand's decision to settle the Listeriosis class action, viewing it as a vital step towards closure for affected families. The 2017 outbreak led to the Tiger Brand's facility infected over 820 people and resulted in 218 deaths. Families with medical records are urged to come forward to support claims, with the NICD assisting in documentation. The incident underscored the need for stricter food safety practices, and we will have more on this in the 7 o'clock hour.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have the one of the lawyers representing them coming through to speak to us about that in the second hour of the show. Tell me about the developments around the court case around the killing of the journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zodwa Mdluli. Where does that stand?
So there has been further delays in this case, with court proceedings being postponed again yesterday. The couple disappeared in February in Mamelodi, and while 5 suspects have been arrested, 2 remain at large. Remains believed to be theirs were recently recovered in Limpopo, but DNA confirmation is still pending. The families have shared that they are frustrated by the slow progress and continue to await answers and closure. 2 suspects appeared in court this week, but the hearing was postponed to next week, Monday, after delays over media coverage.
And then the other story we're looking at, Melissa, has to do with Ithala Bank. There was a judgment that came through that affects how the processes that have been unfolding from the side of the Reserve Bank are carried out. What is the Prudential Authority of the Reserve Bank telling us about that?
So the Prudential Authority has responded, and they are saying that them and the repayment administrator plan to appeal the judgment by the KZN High Court, which ruled in favor of allowing Ithala to resume full operations despite earlier freezing of its accounts due to a provisional liquidation application. They are citing concerns over depositor fund protection. The broader liquidation case remains pending. Meanwhile, the KZN government is continuing to support Ithala, and they are accusing the authority of undermining a historically community-focused institution. And Ithala faces allegations of unlawfully accepting deposits without a formal banking license, raising concerns for its over 200,000 clients.
Right, that is Melissa Buta there with the morning brief in brief, just sweeping through some of the important stories that we thought we should highlight that we may not necessarily always have time to get to within these 3 hours.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
On this Tuesday morning, let me tell you how your weather is looking. Let's start in Pretoria, where the weather will be fine with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 23. Johannesburg will have morning fog patches, otherwise fine with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 21. Mbombela will be partly cloudy, 11 to 23. Polokwane, fine, becoming partly cloudy, 8 to 20. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy, 7 to 22. Bloemfontein will be fine, 4 to 21. Kimberley, fine 6 to 21. Uppington, fine 5 to 24. Cape Town will be fine with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 23. George will be partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 21. Gqeberha will be fine with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 23. East London, fine 10 to 23. Durban will be fine with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 23. Richards Bay, fine 15 to 25. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will be fine with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 23.
Hey Mzansi, autumn may be here, but we're extending the sunshine on our blue sky offers at Ford. Get a new Everest XLT from just $9,999 per month at prime less 5%. When financed through Ford Credit, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. 10% deposit, 6% interest, 40% residual. And remember, every blue sky offer comes standard with our Ford family promise. That's just $9,999 at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The city of Durban is once again ready to roll out the red carpet for thousands of delegates and influential buyers who are gathering from across the globe from the 12th to the 15th of May to attend the Africa's Travel Indaba. This premier travel exhibition stands as the continent's flagship event, showcasing the best that Africa has to offer in leisure travel. Visit Durban to explore and experience the city's unique offerings firsthand, from breathtaking hikes, thrilling indoor and outdoor adventures, vibrant culture, stunning natural landscapes, and world-class attractions. Join Durban Tourism at stand DEC 1G09 for your next holiday destination. For more details, visit Durban.travel or follow at DBN Tourism on social media platforms. #Discover Durban, #Visit Durban, #Endless Fun Season, #Africa Travel Indaba, #ATI 2025, #Durban has more.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
21 minutes after 6. Global markets are heaving a collective sigh of relief amid indications that the world's two biggest economies are de-escalating their recent ruinous trade war. After months of an intensifying trade conflict, the US and China have reached a temporary agreement to reduce tariffs imposed since April the 2nd. Under the deal, the US will lower its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%, while China will reduce its tariffs on US goods from 125% to 10%. Both reductions represent a 115 percentage point drop. So let's speak to Brooks Spector, who is Associate Editor at Daily Maverick and an international relations expert. Good morning to you, Brooks, and thank you for your time. So Donald Trump is hailing all of this as a total reset in relations between China and the United States after the two countries have agreed now to this 90-day pause. Is it the total reset he is hailing, or is this just temporary reprieve with no guarantee that the trade hostilities won't simply resume after 90 days?
Well, good morning. Good to be with you. It's very, at this point, opinion is all over the landscape, but I think it's fair to say the following things. It's not the total reset that the president wishes to claim. It's rather more a rollback to where things were just a couple of months ago, and it is a de-escalation of some of the harsher rhetoric and some of the increasingly uncertain way things were headed. You had TV footage of cargo ships not arriving at the harbors in California, for example, or along the East Coast. In other words, things were not happening that up until that moment were. But by the same token, it represents something of a dose of reality between the two countries that you cannot continue to further escalate the crisis in trade. You can't continue to further upset and create even more uncertainty, and that you have to come back to earth, basically, and begin to figure out how these things should be done. And the other lesson that I would draw from it is that people need to understand, not necessarily condone, but certainly understand that a lot of this behavior was really the Donald Trump way of negotiating that he had developed or had learned or assimilated from years of real estate dealings. You create these enormous and increasingly high-pressured demands, and then as the other side blinks a little bit, you blink and everybody moves back to normality.
So, to what extent do domestic factors weigh in here, Brooks? I saw that there was a great deal of concern in the United States, let me put it that way, including on comments such as what he said about when the impact on toys, the price of toys was highlighted to him, and he talked about how, the average American child will now need to make do and accept that instead of having 30 dolls, they might have to make do with just 2. And from time to time, he kept saying to people in the United States, don't panic, we're going to enjoy a bit of pain. Was there a sense that patience was wearing thin on the ground in the U.S.?
Well, yeah, first of all, I was particularly taken with the idea that there were children all over America desperate to add yet one more doll to their 30-doll collection. I don't know any children that have 30 dolls. I mean, my kids may do with a couple, but I don't think we ever had 30 in the whole house. But regardless of that, kind of exaggeration that is also pure Donald Trump, clearly there were domestic pressures, because you have to keep in mind that a lot of the stuff that people want to get for the holiday season is already in process of being made. The trends, the toys, the clothing, the accessories, the computer games, whatever it is, gets made about this time and shipped into the supply chain so that by October, November, it's available for purchase. And up until that comment about a little bit of pain, he had been basically with wild reassurance telling everybody that no problem, we're going to work this out easily, it won't cost you a thing. And then if you go back to a couple of months before that the golden era of the country was right on the horizon, and suddenly people were realizing, trade issues, that they matter at home. They matter in the activities of a normal person, and the prices were not coming down as promised. You put all this together, and somebody made a clear calculation that wait a minute now, we can't keep ratcheting this up. Eventually, we're going to have to unratchet it or ratchet it back down a bit before there's some serious disillusionment. And the polls were already saying that measuring all the different issues that the presidency has to address, that his economic policies were underwater, that is, under 50% levels of support.
Yeah.
So you put that together, and yes, there was domestic pressure, even if there weren't riots in the streets and mass mobilizations and demonstrations over the price of dolls.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights as always. That is Brooks Spector. He's Daily Maverick Associate Editor.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Our story as far as football goes and the rising stock of South African football continues, right? With Amajita this time.
Oh, yeah. Let me just tell you, Tulas, the future is fast. It's fearless and proudly South African.
Right. I love that.
Yes, indeed. We are looking right and bright with South Africa reaching the semi-finals of the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. And this is for the 5th time in their history. They qualified, and this is for the World Cup with last night's 1-0 extra time quarterfinal win against the Democratic Republic of Congo. SuperSport United substitute striker Thabang Mahlangu scored the winner 4 minutes into added time for the first half of extra time of a quarterfinal where chances were hard to come by. Now, the top 4 sides reached the World Cup being held in Chile in September and October. Amajita will meet Nigeria in their semi-final. That's on Thursday, 5 p.m. That's kick-off. Host Egypt will meet Morocco in the later semi, and that's also at 8 p.m. on Thursday. Egypt booking their ticket after a nerve-shredding 5-4 penalty shootout, and that was their victory over Ghana after a 2-2 draw in regulation time, while Nigeria, they held their nerve to secure place in the semi-finals. They defeated the defending champion Senegal 3-1 on penalties after a goalless draw in regulation and extra time. Elsewhere, Real Madrid want Xabi Alonso in place as their new manager in time for the start of next month's Club World Cup. Sources say the plan is for Alonso to travel to Madrid on the 1st of June to prepare the team for their first game of the inaugural FIFA tournament on the 18th of June against Saudi side Al Hilal in Miami. Now, Son Heung-min is on course to be fit for Tottenham Hotspur's Europa League final against Manchester United next week as the South Korean aims to emulate his former strike partner Harry Kane and win his first career silverware. Kane left Tottenham in 2023 as the club's record goal scorer. But without any tangible reward, he finally broke his duck as Bayern Munich were crowned Bundesliga champions. And cricket, India's Virat Kohli retiring from Test cricket after playing 123 matches in his glorious 14-year red ball career. Kohli's retirement comes only days after fellow veteran Rohit Sharma stepped down from Test cricket.
His journey has given me so many memories, so many good moments while watching his game. And it was so sudden when I heard about his retirement, and I'm just at loss of words because I expected him to play for a couple more years. He's very fit and he's been playing really well. He's been in good form. So it was very sudden for him to just retire out of a sudden.
And finally, tennis, the 4th seed Coco Gauff comfortably beating Emma Raducanu 6-1, 6-2. And that's to reach the quarterfinals of the Italian Open. Here's Coco Gauff.
I knew it was going to be a tougher match, and she's been playing some great tennis, and she had a good win over Veronica, which is not easy to do. So yeah, I'm really happy with how I played today, and yeah, definitely my best match so far here. I would say serve and definitely forehand. I think you was able to use that a lot to move her around the court and really put her on defense for most of the match. So I think those were the two keys, and honestly a little bit of luck because it was super windy, so some points were very awkward to play.
We'll serve you more sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, US President Donald Trump has again incorrectly stated there's a genocide happening in South Africa as justification for his executive order allowing white Afrikaners who claim discrimination to acquire an expedited path to citizenship in the United States. The NPA has announced it will appeal the court ruling in the Timothy Omotosho and two co-accused rape trial. He was acquitted on all charges, including rape and human trafficking, in April. And the court appearance of two people allegedly linked to the disappearance and murder of journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zotwa Mdluli has been postponed to next Monday for further investigation and possible bail application. They appeared in the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Let's kick it off in Cape Town, Tableview area. Some heavy traffic building on local routes this morning. It's the protest that continues up at Dunoon. There's some traffic restrictions along Malabongwe Drive, also on the Potsdam Road. So we're talking really central Dunoon. The N7 is open. There's no problem with the N7. You can use that route, but it's sort of the congested routes inside Dunoon, Malabongwe and Potsdam. And a lot of motorists diverting away from that, so jamming up routes like Gee Road. Gee Road particularly heavy from Parklands coming down through Tableview to Bloberg Road. The West Coast Road noticeably busier this morning from Sunningdale, making your way down past Bayside Mall in towards Dolphin Beach Hotel. So a lot of disruption. It was a nightmare getting home into Tableview last night with that Dunoon protest. Probably going to be the same getting out this morning. Just staying in the Cape, the M7 out of Mitchell's Plain very heavily backed up through Samora Michelle. Protest action in Mpumalanga this morning. The R40 blocked between Bushbuck Ridge and Castile. Again, trucks being used to blockade that section of the R40. Good idea to travel later, I would think. Joburg bound on the M1 through Midrand. That's fairly busy this morning from Brockfontein down to about Samrand Road. Looks like something's happened down that side. And Durban, looking okay on the N3, we are pretty much delay free, although just starting to build up on that N3 both ways around the rumble strips near Pavilion Mall. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning, let's say good morning to Ndawling Lechela. So Ndawling, we start with a focus on the property sector. Tell me about Redefined Properties and their strong showing from both local and international portfolios.
Morning, Tula. So rent increases and new leases have given Redefined Properties a boost during the half-year period. The property company reported a 3.5% increase in revenue to 5.4 billion rands, while the measure used to gauge a property company's success, distributable income per share, came in flat, up 0.7%. Now, the company's South African portfolio achieved a net operating profit margin of about 77.8%, while its Polish retail properties improved their margin to 71.7%. The industrial sector performed well. That's where it got most of its gains, with a 97.6% occupancy rate. But the office sector continued to face challenges due to oversupply and weak demand. Now, Redefined Property portfolio includes 59 retail properties in South Africa, including Centurion Mall and Benmore Center. The firm also owns assets in Poland. The company says it is focused on owning and managing high-quality properties, prioritizing sustainable cash flow growth and disciplined capital allocation.
Yeah. The other big player, of course, in the sector, Baldwin Properties. Tell me about them.
Yes.
And them eyeing a recovery after some mixed earnings in the last while.
Yeah, so we've seen the residential property market suffer for quite some time due to those high interest rates to us, and that really reflected in Baldwin Properties results. It was a tale of two halves, as Baldwin Properties reported mixed numbers, with a stronger second half hinting at a potential recovery despite challenges posed by high interest rates. But what we are seeing in that second half of the year is when those interest rates started coming down. Now, the company's revenue declined by 6% to 2.2 billion rand, while profit increased 8% to 234 million rands. Now, the group's gross profit margin improved to 30%, driven by the strong performance of its Bowen annuity businesses. Operating expenditure was tightly managed, remaining flat compared to the prior year at 350 million rands. Now, Bowen's cash position remained solid with a cash balance of 254.8 million rand, and this was below the industry average. The Gauteng node continued to be the largest revenue contributor with 856 apartments recognized in revenue, while the Western Cape saw strong demand with 99% of units sold. Despite market pressures, Bowen remains optimistic about its prospects, driven by its annuity business and cost containment efforts. The group says the interest rate cuts have had a positive impact on sales, with the monthly average gross sales rate increasing by 30% since the start of the rate cutting cycle.
Lastly, Gauteng, how are the markets looking at this hour?
It's green screens in financial markets to us as traders celebrate the truce we've seen between China and the US, the world's two largest economies, reducing tariffs and boosting market sentiment. With that, we saw the Nasdaq leading the gains stateside, trading over 4% higher at the end of the session. The mood also positive here at home, with the all share up 0.34%. Resources, however, pulling back as the gold price rally cooled, further limiting gains on the local front. The rand, in the meantime, remaining steady in the 1820-1830 range, is currently trading at 1826 to the greenback this hour. Then looking at Asian stocks, it's also green across the board. That's as risk is back on the table following a trade agreement between the US and China.
All right, thank you for that. That's Gauteng Lechela. With the first update of the morning, she'll be back just after 7:30 on the morning brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, we turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. So let's start in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. I saw that and I watched the panel discussion that featured our very own President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, and it was much anticipated. We found out that they have so-called family meetings akin to the addresses that President Ramaphosa used to hold with us. Tell me how it transpired yesterday.
Absolutely, Tulas, Jumbo Africa, and a refreshing morning to the listeners. Tulas, yesterday in Cote d'Ivoire, Abidjan, it was the Africa CEO Forum that is always drawing attention of more of business leaders, investors, policymakers, and heads of state. This year, the theme, Tulas, was under Africa in a transactional world. Can a new deal between state and private sector deliver the continent a winning hand? Talking about the winning hand, Tulas, the crisis in the DRC, Kagame touching on US and Qatar mediation efforts and raising the issue that Africa have to actively play its own part in finding solutions to African problems. President Ramaphosa, on the other hand, Tulas, raising an important issue also about the process of Nairobi and Luanda in terms of founding peace and confidence in the crisis in the Eastern DRC. As we know, Tulas, nobody knew that both presidents will sit side by side, engaging on issues of business and conflicts in Africa. We know what has happened, Tulas, with Rwanda and South Africa when the Battle of Goma started early this year. So it is promising to see both Paul and Cyril in one roof and engaging on Africa.
Yeah, and in fact, President Ramaphosa making the point that people expected sparks to fly between them at that panel, and there were no sparks that were going to fly, saying that they have family meetings and they are on speed dial with one another. I don't know. I didn't hear Paul Kagame confirming that. Nevertheless, let's move on, Sipho. Tell me about the new AU Commission chairperson outlining his administration's key priorities.
Muhammad Ali Yusuf yesterday in the capital city of the African continent, Addis Ababa, Tula, signaling the issues of continental peace, security, boasting Africa's voice on a global stage, but also touching an important issue, Tula, that we hardly talk about, the issue of how to empower women and youth in Africa. And he has already put the former minister of Tanzania as a special envoy for women Another important aspect to us, I've always said it before, the AU is the foundation to us. What are the pillars? What are the doors and the windows of the AU? It's the regional economic bodies. He emphasized on the role of the REX, your SADC, your ECOWAS, your East Africa community. That's very important to us. And finally, he also touched on the forthcoming meeting this month to us, the third EU and African Union Foreign Affairs Ministerial meeting, where they will be busy dealing with issues of peace, migration and multilateral governance.
And tell me about the Malawian president and what he's had to say on International Nurses Day.
That was yesterday, by the way, Thulas, even if I didn't touch it on my historical archive. But the Bishop Lazarus Chakwera pledging his administration for the full support of nurses and the midwives, calling them what he said are the backbone of national development. He has emphasized to us, yes, there are challenges in terms of employment opportunities for the nurses, but they will need to have to expand the healthcare access and create more work or opportunities. He's already raised this to us, as you are aware, that it's an election year in Malawi, so he has to convince the health workers to be on his side. So this is a good way of the bishop to us raising the issues of healthcare, but also dealing with the International Nurses Day, which was yesterday.
And then lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, take me back to 13 May 1969.
Thulas, is almost 56 years ago when the then apartheid minister, Jimmy Kruger, announced that Professor Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe will be released from Robben Island and will be allowed to join his family. Temporarily, Thulas, because it was banishment actually. They released Sobukwe under Sobukwe Clause Act. They put him in Haleshewe in Kimberley. He still remained under 12 hours of house arrest under that draconian law of Communism Act of 1950. We know the role and the impact of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe Thulas. Even when he was behind bars, he still studied Thulas. He got his honors degree in economics in the University of London and also studied the law degree with the University of the Land UNISA. So this is an important historical archive Thulas when you look at the impact and the role of Ubawo Shati, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. Asante sana Thulas as facilitating the conversation, SAFM observing the Africa Month. I know Thulas, you're still happy with the Chiefs game on weekend. Some of us, we are taking it a silent observation.
I don't know why you would even suggest that, Sipho.
I've been listening to you
I'm as neutral. I'm telling you, I'm as neutral as Sweden in this. I don't have a horse in this race.
I know you and Zai and Zelma have been colluding about this win after 10 years of drought.
Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update for this morning.
We spend a lot of time looking for deals, but we don't invest the same time in our health. Your health buys you more time with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that rewards you for living healthier with lower premiums and more cover. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
You know, ever since I adopted positive energy-saving behaviors, the National Grid is thanking me. You should also adopt this lifestyle and your pocket will thank you too. Simply switch off non-essential appliances and lights when they're not in use. Reduce your geyser temperature to 60 degrees Celsius. Replace inefficient lights with LED lights. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to help sustain our energy grid and contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. ESCOM.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
6:45 on this Tuesday morning. Let's turn to this issue now. One of those unique stories playing themselves out really at the moment. The Department of Transport is under pressure to find an interim solution to the driver's license card printing crisis following the repeated breakdowns of the country's sole license card machine. After a nearly 3-month outage, the machine has been repaired, but concerns remain about its reliability and outdated security features, with a backlog of nearly 750,000 unprinted cards adding urgency to that situation. So let's speak to the National Department of Transport spokesperson, Colin Msibi, who joins us now. Good morning to you and thank you for your time this morning. Just an update then. We have just one license card printing machine, and when it breaks down, it wreaks havoc across the system. Where do we stand by way of getting it fixed, but importantly, by way of getting card licenses issued to those who've made applications?
Good morning, and thanks for having us. Just to respond to your question, I think it's important to say that the machine has been fixed now. So we're back in operations. The issue of the backlog is, of course, the next headache we have. We're sitting at about 747,000 cards that have not been printed. So which simply means that we will have this backlog, but it doesn't stop people from still going to apply on a daily basis. So we would have to balance the two. So which does say to us that we would have to double the amount of hours that we spend in terms of printing the cards. So basically the drama begins because when we do that, we've got to ensure that we first have to be confident about the machine after we've fixed it. We don't want it to perform to its maximum right from the beginning. So it is difficult at this point to say when are we able to finish with printing off the backlog in terms of the cards that still needs to be printed.
Would you agree that this is an unacceptably messy situation where we are at the mercy of just one machine that breaks down from time to time, and we're told that its age is now at a point where reliability becomes an issue, safety features become an issue? How did we land ourselves up here in this situation?
Absolutely, I think they are quite correct. It's really giving us headaches, and hence I think when you're opening remarks, you did say that we're trying to find an interim solution. And it is for that reason, because you would recall, when we started having problems with this machine, it was around the COVID-19 period. And that's when we actually went to Cabinet to say we need to have a solution, which was approved by Cabinet. We went on tender around November 2022. We couldn't find a suitable service provider. We had to go back in 2023. And that process brought us to August last year, where there was a service provider which was appointed. But unfortunately, with the Auditor General having to audit the processes that were followed, it was found that these irregularities that happened. So we were sitting where we are sitting because not because we don't want to have new machines. It is because of the audit process that took place. So a decision had to be made. As you know, the South African culture, the moment you go ahead with the appointment of the service provider under a cloud like that, then it becomes an issue. Why do you appoint a company when you know you proceed with the appointment when you know there's an issue with the audit? So we've had to make a decision, which the minister did, to say let's go to court for a declaratory order so that the court decide whether we go ahead with that service provider or not. So that's where we are, so that we are able to fix this mess. But while doing that, the interim solution is something that we are looking into, and I think there's going to be a pronouncement sooner rather than later. So we believe that that interim solution is the one that is going to save us while we wait for the court processes to unfold.
What is that interim solution? What does that look like? What will you be doing to try and, the situation as it stands now is very inconvenient for drivers when they are stopped at roadblocks. How do you mitigate those difficulties where people will find themselves being stopped at roadblocks by officers who sometimes will not be willing to take that story that says, I did a renewal application, I'm holding a temporary license that is now expired with the other proof? How are you communicating that to make sure that it filters through such that there's that, accommodation across the system?
Well, firstly, the communication has gone to the provincial authorities, so they are well aware of what's happening. Hence, we've said that if you've applied before your card expires, you can keep the receipt and also keep your expired license. But if you've applied after the expiry of your license, of course, it means you are illegal on the road. So you just have to get a temporal license. So the law enforcement authorities are well aware of that. When it comes to the second question you're asking, as far as the interim solution, unfortunately at this point, that's something which is above my pay grade. And I think the details of what is this plan, the solution is about, I think I would rather leave that to the minister to announce it's something that is still being cooked. So I think it's better that we wait until such time that the minister is able to announce on that.
So no briefing to you at all about what that's likely to look like, whether there's going to be a temporary acquisition of another machine or a retrofit of this particular machine or switching over to other forms of, licensing.
Well, I cannot give any details. Yeah. I'm not directly, intimately involved in that particular process myself, so I can't give any details on that.
All right, let's leave it there then. That's Colin Msibi there, who is the National Transport Department spokesperson.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning. A couple of areas of protesting around the country on some major routes. The R40 north of Bushbuck Ridge is blocked. Community protest there. Trucks being used to blockade the R40. Travel later would be the call once that scene has been attended to and dealt with. And also the R61 Eastern Cape between Lebodi, just outside Lebodi on the Port St John Road. Also protesters blocking off that section of roadway as well. Staying with protest action, Cape Town's Dunoon area, community unrest there. Malabongwe is quite a heavy backlog getting out from Rivergate through to the N7. Potsdam Road all jammed up in that area. It is an area of unrest, so there's a lot of traffic disruption there, and the knock-on effect is forcing traffic through Tableview. So routes like the West Coast Road down through from sort of Sunningdale through to Dolphin Beach, Bloberg Road out towards the Kuberg Road, Gee Road from Parklands down through to Bloberg, Wood Drive through that Parklands area down through to Bloberg Road, all noticeably much heavy this morning. If you commute out of Tableview, make sure you got plenty of extra time on your trip this morning. Joburg crashing on the N12 near Craft Road. That's on your way through to Joburg, so some delays backing up coming through from Boxburg. Also delays between Benoni and Boxburg. Something happening around sort of Rondebolt Road, Atlas Rondebolt. So very heavy if you put those two together coming through from Benoni in towards the Edenvale, Germiston area. And a crash on the Mike 1 highway near Houghton Drive. Queuing pressure both sides of that particular highway. Durban, the N3, starting to slow up both ways, in and outbound through the rumble strips between Pavilion Mall and Spaghetti Junction. Equally heavy both sides. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
6 minutes to 7. As the country braces for Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's third take at presenting the national budget, a spirited debate rages on about tax proposals some believe could help plug the revenue gap in the state's coffers. With pressure mounting from opposition parties to implement a wealth tax, the minister is holding firm against the idea, citing economic risks and potential long-term damage. So let's speak to the economist Azar Jamin, who joins me now to take us forward with that particular conversation. He's Director and Chief Economist at Econometrics. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So the proposal, the way I understand it, as it came through from the EFF, they would want an increase in corporate income tax as well as introducing a wealth tax on underutilized land and apartheid-era trusts, which they say would target inherited privilege. Let's park the corporate income tax for a moment. The idea of a wealth tax as articulated in this way and the minister's pushback against it. What do you make of it?
Well, there are many different ways of contemplating a wealth tax. And the EFF is on unutilized land. In many ways, you already are seeing heavy taxes being paid on unutilized land in the form of very high levels of property rates that are being paid on that. So to some extent, you already have a wealth tax of that that goes towards financing municipalities. The real concern, however, that the minister expressed is that more generally, if you tax wealth, you tend to push people away from the country. They go and transfer their lifestyle to countries where there is no wealth tax, and so the country forgoes whatever form of income tax that might, or whatever form of tax that might have otherwise been levied on the person.
So part of the background to all of this is that SARS, the Revenue Authority, just recently revealed that some nearly 3,000 individuals with net asset value of over 50 million rand collectively contribute some 70 billion rand in personal income tax. Some would say, in terms of the sharing of the burden, the tax burden, is that balanced properly in your view?
I think that is open to debate as to whether it's balanced properly. The fact is that the revenue services do collect a lot of tax from these wealthy individuals, and the fear is that if you go overboard in taxing them, you might lose all of that in tax that is paid, rather than actually collecting more of it. And internationally, wealth taxes have been found to be a tricky tax to implement, and one that tends to result in can lead to losses of tax tax revenue rather than increasing tax revenue. The other thing is, administratively, it's quite a nightmare to actually implement. And we've already done research in this country into the advisability or not of wealth taxes. And the Commission of Inquiry under Judge Dennis Davis actually concluded that, that it was probably going to be counterproductive to introduce it. And that's another reason why we've been very reluctant to do so, although the Minister of Finance didn't actually allude to this commission, but it was conducted some years ago.
Yeah, I've got to correct myself there. The net assets values of these nearly 3,000 individuals average about 50 million per individual, but collectively they contribute some 7 billion rand in personal income taxes. So, but then I suppose if it came down to a choice between an increase in VAT and a wealth tax, which one would be the lesser of the two evils?
Well, this is the point. Increase in VAT is so much easier to implement, and you would automatically get a lot of money from that, and as much as you actually anticipate. Whereas a wealth tax, you've got to put in a tremendous infrastructure to try and detect and identify where the money is going to come from, and to implement it. It's far more difficult to actually implement. So obviously you would go for the VAT solution because it's so much easier, and that's one of the big attractions. It's one of the more certain forms of tax that you can collect.
And part of the minister's answer has been that there are already a plethora of taxes that are already charged that amount to a wealth tax. He mentions the estate duty levied on assets as well as things such as capital gains tax.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, those are the ones that are already in place. And as I say, if you want to, you can extend that to precisely what Mr. Malema is suggesting, that, on unutilized land, the proportion of rates that you pay are very much higher than is the case on utilized land. So that, to me, is also a form of wealth tax that people have been complaining when I've encountered people with unutilized land and how much they have tax they're having to pay in the form of property rates. So that is already a form of wealth tax.
All right. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Dr. Azar Jamin. He is the director and chief economist at Econometrics. Brings us to 7 a.m. Let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, NPA to appeal Omotosho judgment, and Trump insists there's a genocide happening in South Africa. Good morning. The NPA has announced it will appeal the Gqeberha High Court judgment in which Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotosho and 2 others were acquitted. Last month, Omotosho and his 2 co-accused were acquitted on all charges, including rape, human trafficking and racketeering. This after Judge Irma Skuman in her ruling said the state had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The Eastern Cape Director of Public Prosecutions, Berry Madolo, says the decision to appeal was made after a team of the NPA interrogated the transcript and sourced legal opinion from senior counsel. NPA spokesperson Mtunzi Maga.
We take the view firmly so that the Honorable Judge misdirected herself in applying the law, and there is not much evaluation that went into the evidence of each witness that has been led by the state prosecutors. However, we are constrained in criticizing the judges in public platform like this. We only have one legal avenue, which is an appeal process, in respect of which yesterday, the 12th of May, our counsel sent a request for clarification of factual findings in the judgment because we believe that they are not glaring, they are not clear at all.
The court appearance of 2 people allegedly linked to the disappearance and murder of journalist Aser Ndlovu and his partner Zotwa Mdluli has been postponed to next Monday for further investigation and a possible bail application. They appeared in the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga. 3 other accused remain in custody while 2 more suspects are at large. The couple went missing in February. Remains believed to be of the couple were discovered last week. However, DNA results are still pending. Mdluli's aunt, Florence Manana, says the family wants closure.
We were planning to have maybe, if it's them, the memorial service and then the funeral, so that we'll be able to move on and try to make it closure with this thing. But now, emotionally, we still have to continue. We're not fine. We're not fine. It's not okay at all.
Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gauteng McKenzie says they are on a drive to convince the young people of Mitchell's Plain to embrace sport rather than gangsterism. McKenzie was speaking during the handover of 2 multi-purpose sport facilities, including netball courts, basketball and football fields. Sports equipment was also issued to 15 schools in the area. McKenzie says they want to use the facility to fight gangsterism.
Willem Jackson said no to crime. Ashwin Williams turned his back on crime. What the gangsters are doing, they're recruiting our young people. They recruit them as a lifestyle. We must recruit our children with these facilities. We must make sure sport is fashionable again.
US President Donald Trump has again incorrectly stated there is a genocide happening in South Africa as justification for his executive order allowing white Afrikaners who claim discrimination to acquire an expedited path to citizenship in the United States. Trump was responding to a question about why 49 Afrikaners are being allowed to enter the US while virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and wars in countries like Sudan and the DRC have been halted. Trump made these comments.
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something, but we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of, but it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about, but it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being confiscated in South Africa.
And finally, an Israeli-American hostage who had been held by Hamas for 19 months has been reunited with his family as US President Donald Trump prepares to begin a Middle East tour. Idan Alexander, who's 21, hugged his parents and siblings at an Israeli military base hours after his release. The BBC's Hugo Bachega has the details.
Idan Alexander's release was the result of talks between the US and Hamas without Israeli involvement. The families of the remaining hostages have long been suspicious of the intentions of the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is continuing with the war. They hope that pressure from President Trump could result in a deal for all of the hostages to be freed. Hamas demands that any agreement should lead to the end of the conflict, something the Prime Minister has repeatedly rejected.
Recapping the top story, the NPA has announced it will appeal the Gqeberha High Court judgment in which Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotosho and 2 others were acquitted. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Breaking news just in. Pinky, a 60-year-old woman, slashed 870 rand a month off her car insurance premium. That's right. Pinky switched to Outsurance and now saves a mind-blowing 870 rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you could pay less? Switch to Outsurance today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer action and Thabang Mahlangu's magic sending Amajita to the World Cup. And we have cricket news. The Indian Premier League will resume on Saturday after being suspended because of the hostilities between India and neighbouring Pakistan. More details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. 2 major routes blocked with protesting around the country. The R40 just north of Bushbuck Ridge out in Mpumalanga is blocked off, and the R61 Eastern Cape just south of Labodi on the Port St John Road. That road also blocked. East London, Beacon Bay area looks all right this morning. Roads appear to be open following yesterday's protest. And Cape Town, Malabongwe Drive through Dunoon closed down because of community unrest, which is hanging over from yesterday. Motorists diverting away from Malabongwe down towards the N7 and jamming up Tableview. Tableview is exceptionally busy this morning. Routes like Gee Road, like Wood Drive, the exits down to Bloberg, down towards the refinery, the West Coast Road from Sunningdale through Dolphin Beach, Bloberg Road at Bayside, noticeably heavier traffic around that Tableview Parklands area. Make sure you're going with plenty of extra time to get through it today. Joburg crash on the N12 westbound by Jet Park Road between Jet Park and Craft Road, heavy coming through from Boxburg and Benoni, and a crash on the Mike 1 Highway near Houghton Drive, causing delays both ways. Durban's M7, again a heavy rally to Pinetown, backlogging from Hunts Detman Highway all the way through St John's Avenue up over the bridge there. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday morning. It's great to be in your company. We are into the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Coming up over the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Mthunzi Maga, who speaks on behalf of the National Prosecuting Authority. A statement coming through this morning from the NPA in which they confirm that they'll be seeking to appeal the judgment of Judge Irma Skuman, which was delivered last month, which acquitted the televangelist Timothy Omotosho of of all charges. Mthunzi Maga, my guest in the next few minutes. And then after that, we'll focus on developments around the Listeriosis crisis that hit the country a few years ago. There have been developments there where Tiger Brands has offered a settlement with some of the victims and people who were affected by that Listeriosis. And I'll be in conversation with one of the lead law attorneys that are representing those families and victims in that class action lawsuit. And that conversation with Richard Spoor is coming up immediately after my conversation with Mthunzi Maga. So let's get started. In it all, I'd want you to weigh in on these conversations. Give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. The second hour of the morning brief starts now.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba! As they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, we're just trying to connect with Mthunzi Maga, who speaks on behalf of the NPA. This after they issued a statement, and that statement coming through very early this morning. It was saying the NPA's Director of Public Prosecutions in the Eastern Cape, Mr. Perry Matolo, has decided to appeal the judgment of the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court in Gqeberha, delivered by Judge Irma Skuman on the 2nd of April 2025, relating to the case against Timothy Omotosho and two others. This decision, according to the NPA, follows a thorough consideration of the matter by an NPA internal team of experienced prosecutors, as well as a legal opinion sourced from senior counsel. The decision could not be rushed due to the complexity of the matter and the voluminous transcript that needed to be interrogated. Just battling a little bit to get a hold of Mthunzi, but we'll see if we can rearrange and speak to him after we speak to my next guest, and that is Richard Spoor.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's get then to that conversation with attorney Richard Spoor. Richard, good morning. We're talking to you about this development in the Listeriosis case, 7 years after the country endured the world's deadliest recorded Listeriosis outbreak. The food manufacturer Tiger Brands agreeing to settle claims from certain victims in what's being hailed as a major step forward in the class action lawsuit tied to its now closed Enterprise Foods facility in Polokwane. Richard Spoor joins me on the line now. Good morning to you. Have you had a chance to consult with your clients over this offer, and what are the outlines and contours of the offer of settlement that has come through from Tiger Brands?
Well, what there is from Tiger is an offer to settle with the claimants with the strongest cases. This is the group of claimants who've had DNA testing. The bacteria with which they were infected was tested and matched with the bacteria that was found in the Tiger Brands facility and in Tiger Brands products. So these are the people where you've got a clear, unambiguous DNA link between their infections and the contaminated products distributed by Tiger. And it's that class of people that they're offering to settle. There are approximately 350 people who had this DNA testing, and of that 350, we've located and identified about 160. But there's still well over 1,000 people who have come forward who contracted Listeriosis after consuming Tiger's products, and there's no offer on the table as yet for those persons.
So that means then that this solves a portion of the class action lawsuit that you've been working on, but it certainly is far from settling everything.
It's a long way to go, and also this claim doesn't sound in money, so the claims of the people that they're offering to settle have to be quantified, and as yet there's no proposal on the table how that would happen.
And the strain of listeriosis that this relates to is the ST6 strain. Do you believe the Tiger Brands insists that this is not an admission of, wrongdoing on their part? But you're saying that technically it amounts to that. Why do you say that? Does it relate to some of the work that you did in the last few years, and some of the work that was done by the the NHI, not the NHI, the labs that were testing to find out where the strain came from?
Yeah, so the National Institute of Communicable Diseases did some remarkable work to track back the source of this outbreak using this genetic sequencing techniques in collaboration with experts in Europe and the United States. And we've harnessed those experts, and we've been building a case so that we could prove the genetic relatedness between the victims and the bacteria found in the factory and the products. And this evidence has been presented. Tiger has also been consulting their own experts. And what is clear is that their experts have confirmed what ours have, that you cannot get around this. There is no way of avoiding the conclusion that you're responsible for this outbreak. So there's still a way to go, but there are large numbers of people who contracted this disease after eating the product during the outbreak, where we can demonstrate with a very high degree of confidence that these people contracted it from the contaminated products that they ate.
Tell me a bit more about the class of people that you represent, around the case that you've been building. Have you been able to quantify how many people will finally make up that class of people? You talk about the infections, there were well over 1,000, but we're also talking about 218 people that died.
We have about 1,300 claimants who come forward, and we are working with the Department of Health to find more. It's been a difficult process. They spread across the country, many of them in small towns, and it's not easy to locate and find them. But we've got, as you said, 217 people who died. We have about 200 women who had stillbirths or miscarriages after contracting this disease. We have over 100 children who suffered serious neurological injuries when they were born with the disease. And then we've got a lot of people who became sick and have suffered ongoing physical damage, neurological damage, organ damage, damage to their bones. There's a range of injuries here, but many of them very, very serious.
So that's an interesting aspect, Richard, that I don't think many of us had taken into consideration, that the damage did not end with people contracting listeriosis and in some instances recovering, as well as those that passed away. There's actually been subsequent damage that you believe you can link directly to that outbreak.
Absolutely. I mean, this bacteria gets, you ingest it, it goes through your gut, it goes into the bloodstream, it infects the brain, the spinal cord, and can enter other organs and cause terrific damage. Typically one in 3 people who contract this disease die. It is a very dangerous, a very deadly disease. It's also very rare. But during the period that Tiger was producing and distributing this product, we had over 1,300 cases in South Africa. So it was quite an extraordinary event, shocking really, because the evidence shows that Tiger was manufacturing and distributing this stuff for a period of almost 18 months, during which they failed to detect it. They failed to pick it up. Their food safety checks simply didn't work. And for a large-scale manufacturer like Tiger, that is shocking. And that is also the reason that we're seeking punitive damages against the company. We're saying what they did was reckless in the extreme. And, it's not good enough that they compensate. They need to be punished for what they've done.
And so when we started this conversation, you were saying that the offer to settle relates to those cases that even in, in the view of Tiger, in light of everything that has come to light in recent years, even they could see that there's a clear case to be made out. How confident are you that you'll be able to prove the case against the company in relation to the other cases that don't form part of this offer of settlement?
Well, it's actually quite interesting because you work on probabilities. So typically in South Africa, we have 20 cases per year. During this period, when we know now from the DNA results that Tiger was producing and distributing contaminated products, we had about 30 cases per week, 30, 40 cases per week. Those cases all came from the factory. So if you got this disease after eating a Tiger product during this period, it is almost certain that you got it from the Tiger product, because the chances of you getting it from anybody else is minuscule, 20 in 60 million. I mean, every year you've got a 20 in 60 million chance of getting the disease. But now during this time, you consume the product and you get sick. And we know that these products were contaminated. On the probabilities, it's overwhelming that you got it from the consumption of this product.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning, Richard. And by the way, in your consultations with your clients, do they find this offer that has been made to be acceptable?
It's a class action, so we're dealing with class representatives.
Yeah.
People are obviously excited at the prospect that, the end is coming of this thing. But such an offer also needs to be approved by the court. In class actions, the court acts as the custodian over the process, and no settlement can be concluded unless the court itself is satisfied that it's fair and it's reasonable and it does justice to all the victims.
All right. Thank you for that. Richard Spoor, who is an attorney from Richard Spoor, Inc., talking to me about the class action lawsuit against Tiger Brands relating to the Listeriosis outbreak of a few years ago.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
This year, our entire continent will gather, people from different places united by a common goal, to discover, to connect, and to grow. The world will get to see our vision, the vast potential that lies within an unlimited Africa, with the objective of creating market access to our vast array of leisure tourism products. Join us from 12 to 15 May at the Durban ICC for this unforgettable experience. South Africa awaits. Come find your joy. Africa's Travel Indaba is proudly brought to you by South African Tourism.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take two quick calls very quickly. Let me start with Pramoro in Mangaung. Good morning to you. You want to react to the news that the NPA will be appealing in this Omotosho matter?
Yes, please. Good morning. Thank you for the good show and for the time.
Thank you.
I disagree with the decision of NPA to appeal that case.
Yep.
We are having bad publicity about the country, looking at the tension between America and South Africa. We shouldn't give Donald Trump more ample excuses, reasons for him to have that impression that there is wrong things that is being done in the country. NPA could have, there's no time limit to appeal an issue. This shouldn't be an urgent matter. What I humbly expected Home Affairs to do was to reinstate the blocked or the cancelled visa or permit of Timothy Omotosho. At least you can give him a temporary stay, whereas the NPA is secretly piling up a strong legal team to appeal that case. it will be very pathetic that if NPA appeals the case, they go to court again and they lose. Even ordinary South African on the street wouldn't even trust the NPA to have that willpower to fight for them. You understand?
I'm battling to follow you, Bramoro. How would the NPA appealing this matter create a bad impression of South Africa? Doesn't it show the workings of the judicial system and the justice system in the country, that we actually have robust institutions that hold the line in as far as justice is concerned? I don't know what that has got to do with what Donald Trump would think, for example.
All right, thank you. Firstly, the NPA had the world, all the time in the world, to present a strong case. There was no need for us to go for appeal. Looking at the length, the years that this case took, NPA had all the time to build a strong case. So if they fail to defend their case in court, how sure are we that they will be able to present a strong case in this appeal? Secondly, we are sitting with Donald Trump, who is claiming that there's persecution against certain race in the country. So if Donald Trump is even supposed to turn his spectacle to a different route, which is even foreigners in South Africa, right, this is going to be a different dimension that this whole thing is going to drag into.
All right.
Already there is one angle on Afrikaners. So if Donald Trump is supposed to shift it, because remember, we already have Pastor Zondo, who was committed probably far worse cases.
All right. I've got to move on. I would want to engage you better in future, because I must say I didn't follow your reasoning this morning. But it's fine. We will talk about it a bit more. The relationship, I didn't really follow what he's saying about this particular case of Omotosho and how it relates to what Donald Trump cares about, and what he would say about the workings of the South African justice system. I'm sorry, I just didn't follow you today, Bramoro.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai, once again. Amajita are off to the World Cup.
Oh, yes. And remember this name, Thabang Mahlangu. This young man just booked South Africa's under-20s a ticket to the World Cup with a goal that was so cool, man. Unbelievable stuff. 1-0 was our victory over DR Congo, sending us into the CAF Under-20 Cup of Nations semi-finals and booking that ticket, that all-important one, to the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Meanwhile, Egypt booked their place in the semi-finals as well of the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. They had a 5-4 penalty shootout victory over Ghana after their match was 2-2 in regulation and extra time. And Nigeria holding their nerve to secure a place in the semi-finals as well. They defeated the defending champion Senegal 3-1 on penalties after a goalless draw in regulation and extra time. Now, closer to home, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies goalkeeper Andile Dlamini has credited her team effort for maintaining the number 1 spot in the first quarter of the 2025 Hollywood Bet Super League campaign.
Everybody has actually pulled, their highest level of concentration and making sure that as a team we break boundaries and we perform to the best of our abilities and we achieve the team's goal because we have a goal as a team. Fitness wise, we are still working towards getting to a level where we have to get as a team. Individually, we're putting so much effort.
Let's go to Ange Postecoglou looking ahead on Monday to next week's UEFA Europa League final as preparations for Tottenham Hotspur's clash against Premier League rivals Man United gets underway.
When you look at the historical backdrop of this club and what it's sort of been on for the last 20-odd years, I feel like it could be a turning point in terms of the way the club is perceived, but also more how it perceives itself, which is, I think, the biggest thing. Because until you do that, irrespective of what else you accomplish, people are always going to say, well, you haven't won anything. And in our game and in life in general, I guess that's the things that matter most when people sort of assess where you're at.
And finally, tennis action. The 4th seed Coco Gauff beating Emma Raducanu 6-1, 6-2 to reach the Italian Open yesterday. Here's Gauff.
I knew it was going to be a tougher match, and she's been playing some great tennis, and she had a good win over Veronica, which is not easy to do. So yeah, I'm really happy with how I played today, and yeah, definitely my best match so far here. I would say serve and definitely forehand. I think you was able to use that a lot to move her around the court and really put her on defense for most of the match. So I think those were the two keys, and honestly a little bit of luck because it was super windy, so some points were very awkward to play.
We'll serve you up more sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the NPA has announced it will appeal the Gqeberha High Court judgment in which Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotosho and two others were acquitted. Last month, Omotosho and his two co-accused were acquitted on all charges, including rape, human trafficking and racketeering. The family of a missing patient, 51-year-old Tinana Ntimane, says police and the Provincial Health Department are not doing enough to find her. She allegedly went missing from the Tonga Hospital in Nkomazi, Mpumalanga, a week after she was admitted. And International Relations and Cooperations Minister Ronald Lamula says the Afrikaner group that took a decision to leave to the US do not qualify for a refugee status. The Trump administration made a decision to grant white Afrikaners who want to leave South Africa refugee status. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning, Eastern Cape. First up, a reminder of protesting again that's erupted Beacon Bay and Non-Pumalelo areas. A lot of routes being affected. There will be diversions. There will be delays right across that area, sort of Nahoon Valley, the greater Nahoon Valley area, northern suburbs of East London, really under pressure. There's a bit of a backlog coming out of Gauteng as well towards the end too. Joburg crash on the Mike 1 highway near Houghton Drive. Heavy both ways. Southbound from Sandton, northbound from Ormonde. Mike 1 under pressure. Collision on the N12 at Craft Road on your way to Joburg. That queue's back at Benoni, and a crash on the N3 north at Modderfontein Road, and that's pushing traffic all the way back into Elan's interchange territory. N1 between Brockfontein and New Road's heavy, including a collision on the side of the highway before you get to Olifantsfontein Road. Durban this morning, the N3 super heavy into the rumble strips at Pavilion Mall, inbound from Paradise Valley, outbound really from about the N2 south Umgeni Road. That's where you pick it up. N2 south Umgeni Road through Spaghetti Junction and out towards those strips. The M13 being battered by diverting pressure Westville through Sherwood. A collision on the M13 at Gillett, both ways being held up. And Cape Town, Table View, if you've got to get in or out of that area, give yourself plenty of time to get through. Dunoon's Malabongwe is closed because of protesting causing absolute chaos and loading heavy delays through Table View. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's start this hour in the automotive sector. Tell me about Nissan and their plans about cutting more jobs.
Now, this is according to Japanese media reports. Thulasizwe is planning to cut over 10,000 jobs globally, bringing the total number of job cuts to around 20,000 or 15% of its workforce. Now, this move is part of the company's efforts to streamline its operations and improve resilience after experiencing weak sales in key markets like China and the US. Now, the job cuts follow Nissan's previous announcement of 9,000 layoffs and plans to reduce global capacity. The company is undergoing even further restructuring after that tie-up with Honda fell through, and this is now under the new CEO, Ivan Espinosa, who took over last month. Nissan has faced challenges in adapting to the shift towards hybrid and electric vehicles, particularly in the US market. In China, Nissan plans to launch 10 new vehicles to reverse its declining sales. Nissan's financial performance has also been under pressure, with the company warning of a record net loss for the 2025 financial year. Now, the company has also scrapped plans to build a $1.1 billion EV battery factory in Japan and closed several plants, including the one in Thailand. These are just some of the measures that Nissan say will help it return to profitability and be able to compete in this rapidly changing auto market.
Tell me about Boxer and their plans. They plan to punch above their weight. I
love that. Absolutely right. They are rolling out more stores, and the rollout plan has actually created thousands of jobs. During its 2025 financial year, the discount retailer opened 40 new stores, which created 3,000 new jobs. The firm says it doesn't end here and it'll be pushing forward with its expansion plan, eyeing 60 new stores in its 2026 financial year. Now, in terms of areas, Boxer is targeting gaps in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Gauteng remains a key focus area as Boxer says it is still unrepresented in the province. To support its growth, the retailer plans to launch a new distribution center that will be based in KwaZulu-Natal, and they plan to open that in September. Now, despite a slowdown in like-for-like sales, Boxer's CEO Marek Masoyada remains confident in the profitability of the store model as it continues to expand. Looking at its maiden results, the company reported an 11.8% decline in earnings due to its initial public offering. It encountered costs when it listed on the JSE last year, but Masoyada said these were once-off costs, and so he remains optimistic about long-term growth. Boxer expects low-teen sales growth in the 2026 financial year and remains focused on execution to capture growth opportunities.
And how are the markets looking at this hour, Dowling?
Kicking things off in Asia, markets mostly in the green with the exception of the Hong Kong Hang Seng, which is trading 1.3% lower this hour. We are starting to see some of that initial trade deal euphoria fading, but sentiment remains upbeat. In Wall Street, futures are in the red. This as focus shifts to the upcoming consumer prices print. Investors will be eyeing the impact the tariffs have had on the trajectory of inflation. Then coming back home, markets closing mostly positively yesterday following global peers. The all share gaining 0.34% by the end of yesterday's session. Then on the currency front, the rand remaining steady. We are seeing some dollar strength, and that really capping the local units gains. It's currently sitting at 18.23 to the dollar this morning.
Always right on the money. That's Dowling Lechela. Look out for more updates from her in the third hour of the show, just after 8:30.
As the cost of living rises, from school fees to the price of cereal, you can take comfort in knowing that with Outsurance, you could save big on your car insurance. Savings that could make a real difference to your budget every month. Outsurance client Mikey knows all about it.
These guys are super fast, they're very helpful. My bank account is flexing.
Why wait? Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is all about giving you value for your money. Enjoy life-saving services like Help It Out, with 24/7 access to panic assistance, roadside assistance, and home assistance with just a tap on the app.
Feel good. That means that I'm being looked after.
Make today the day you switch. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. Limits apply. T's and C's online.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
21 minutes to 8 on this Tuesday morning. So let's get to that conversation with Advocate Mthunzi Maga, who speaks on behalf of the NPA about the NPA's decision to appeal the judgment that acquitted Timothy Omotosho and his co-accused of all of the charges that they faced, including charges of rape and human trafficking. Good morning to you, Advocate Maga. Thank you for your time. Let's start off with an outline of what it is that you are appealing in the judgment of Judge Irma Skuman.
Good morning, Chilas, and good morning to your listeners. And sorry you couldn't get on with me earlier on. Importantly, Thulas, is the fact that you know, as a law student, that the state can only appeal an acquittal judgment by asking the trier of fact, that is the presiding judge, to reserve questions of law. That's limiting the extent to which an appeal can be mounted. So, according to the memorandum of advice from the internal team of experienced prosecutors in the NPA, as well as the legally sound opinion from CR Counsel, NPA takes the view that there are indeed prospects of success if we take the matter on appeal to the FCA, because with respect, we take the view that the judge misdirected herself on the law and did not do enough to evaluate the evidence presented by the state in respect of each state witness. But Thulas, you know for a fact that I'm constrained in criticizing extensively the judge, given the fact that we are now mounting an appeal against that judgment. That's the only avenue that is available for us to be critical of the judgment.
So, being confined as you are to appealing on and reserving a question of law as opposed to appealing on findings of fact, what about the main line of reasoning of the judge, do you believe represents an error in the application of the law? In that the main line of reasoning of the judge was that the cross-examination of the accused was of such poor quality. What about that line of reasoning that says, even if I wanted to find the accused guilty, I was not led down that path through rigorous and conscientious cross-examination by the prosecution team? Show me the area of law, the question of law that arises from that.
You see, Thulas, I've made it clear that I am not able to do an extensive analysis of the judgment. I can only do an overview, a superficial outline of the grounds upon which we are mounting the appeal. I unfortunately have to disappoint you and say I will not be able to do that at this stage, because remember, there's ample case law that we need to first request the judge to clarify factual findings, which, according to us as the prosecution, they are not clear in the judgment after we assessed it, in order for us to finalize our provisional questions of law.
Okay, I get that. But let me ask you, in the exercise that you've been undertaking, because I believe it involved examining the transcript of the trial, did you or did you not find that what the judge was saying about the performance of the prosecutors is borne out by what actually played out during the hearings? So that's not asking you to preempt anything, and it doesn't relate to the question of law that you will be reserving. Did you find, for example, that as you were listening, as you were going through the transcript, that actually the cross-examination was not as problematic as the judge said it was?
One, we don't think it was problematic as the judge outlined it in the judgment. However, the NDPP assembled a team of experienced prosecutors in the NPA to say, let's conduct an investigation with a view to institute disciplinary action if we agree with the adverse findings that have been made by the judge insofar as they relate to unethical conduct and ineptitude in conducting prosecution in the matter.
So you're saying you did not find it to be problematic, the cross-examination by the prosecutors of the accused and other witnesses?
That's what I'm saying, Thulas.
You found that it was adequate?
We believe so.
Then tell me, Mthunzi, about the investigation that is going into it, because part of what the judge said is that not only was it inadequate cross-examination, there were even ethical questions that were coming up against the team of prosecutors. How far did you go with that particular question of whether or not they did such things as consulting impermissibly with witnesses while they were, testifying, such things as setting up that WhatsApp group and trying to coach the witnesses to, in a way, tailor their evidence to cover up inconsistencies between statements they gave to the police and statements that they then gave to the prosecution team. All of that unethical conduct?
I take the view that you were selective in listening to what I said. I said to you, the adverse findings of ineptitude and unethical conduct on the part of the prosecutors, which is outlined or reflected in the judgment, is subject to investigation by a team assembled by the National Director. We expect reports in respect of the unethical conduct and the ineptitude by end of May and end of June, respectively.
All right. Now, I hear you on that front. What will you say to someone who is saying who will say that you are trying to save face, given the amount of criticism that you came under as the NPA, and that, objectively speaking, the prospects of success on this appeal may not be as great as you believe they are?
You take that view. We take a different one.
Not me.
That's why we decided to even source an opinion, independent one, from counsel outside, who's a senior counsel. It has a devastating impact for the fight, for the victims, for our fight against gender-based violence. That's how we take it. That's what informed the decision to consider appealing the judgment. It is not out of trying to appease the public sentiment. We do this in all judgments we feel aggrieved by, where we take the view that the law was not correctly applied. In this instance, that's the same view that we take.
And just take me through the processes going forward then, Mthunzi, in trying to prosecute this appeal. What then comes after? Now you're saying that you filed the papers where you are seeking clarity on which issues, which findings were findings of fact, which findings were findings of law, so that you are able to direct your attack on the questions of law. What then happens next?
Yesterday, we submitted a request for clarification of factual findings. Once we received that response, we will then finalize the reservation of questions of law. Remember, I indicated earlier that there are provisional points of law that we have crafted through assistance of a senior counsel. Once we get that response from the judge, we will then finalize and submit the papers. You will recall, Thulas, that in terms of Section 319 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which governs or regulates the appeals of this nature, there is no time frame within which to submit same, but we will do so within a reasonable time in order to avoid any undue delay.
And these preliminary points of law, Mthunzi, I suppose that's what I would want to get out of you. Sure, I accept that you are still to go through once the clarity comes through, and you'll finalize what your points of law that you are reserving, what they ultimately what they will look like. But I would want to hear what the preliminary ones are at this particular point.
Thulas, I've made it clear. Whenever you are appealing a judgment as a lawyer, you avoid ventilating such an issue at any other forum other than the one where you are going. I have made it clear that we take the view that the judge misdirected herself in applying the law to the facts. We don't feel convinced that there was sufficient evaluation of evidence presented by the state in respect of each witness. The focus was mainly on the ineptitude and unethical conduct of the prosecution, which is what we believe.
Okay, I'm clear right now about that. Lastly then, Mthunzi, the overall impact over the period of time since the judgment came through on the confidence in the NPA, confidence of victims of sexual violence and abuse, that they will find justice if they approach authorities, including the NPA. How much damage do you believe, if left unchecked, this judgment could have?
If left unchecked, indeed, it's devastating. However, I need to make 2 points to last. That one, we think that the Omotosho acquittal, devastating as it is an isolated incident. You will recall that last last week only, 2 cases: Jocelyn Smith's little girl disappearance, trafficking in persons for exploitation and kidnapping. We got a conviction, which was a demonstration of our prosecutorial capacity. Secondly, the Eastern Cape police officer was sentenced to 20 years for raping a 17-year-old domestic violence victim who sought help from the police station, was raped inside the police station. When she came out crying, police officers on duty laughed at her and said she was on drug. We had to intervene and successfully prosecute that case. So right now we're sitting at a conviction rate in gender-based violence cases that came through the Thulasizwe care centers, which are support victim services centers, at 77%. Indeed, we've got the capacity. Indeed, this is a setback, but we have confidence that people still trust us.
So, without asking you to, prosecute the whole case, for lack of a better expression, and to preempt the review that you are doing in terms of the conduct and the professionalism of the prosecution team, what you just said now leads me to the question: did you, for example, as you were going through the transcript, find that it backs up the finding by the judge that, for instance, the lead prosecutor there did not demonstrate an understanding of the definition of rape as is encapsulated in the law, such that some of the acts that occurred within this context of this case, this prosecutor did not really understand them to constitute rape as defined?
It was concerning indeed, that finding, to us. And that prosecutor, you will recall that he was removed. And the investigation into that, which will inform the outcome thereof, which will inform a disciplinary action to be taken, still awaited. Once that report is received, June or May, we will communicate the outcome thereof.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Advocate Mthunzi Maga. He speaks on behalf of the National Prosecuting Authority.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, kicking off in Cape Town with some real crazy traffic around the Tableview area. It's the result of the closure of the Malabongwe exit because of the protest and unrest at Dunoon. So Malabongwe, the extension of Sandown Road, closed between Rivergate and the N7. And all that traffic that would normally go out on Malabongwe is having to reroute through Tableview, and it's absolute chaos. Gee Road, Wood Drive, both of those southbound, the down towards Bloberg Road, Bloberg to Kuberg Road, even Plattercliff Road coming from sort of De Crendel Circle side. Really big backlogs along to Kuberg Road up to Bloberg, N7 from the closure at Malabongwe all the way down to Plattercliff's heavy. The West Coast Road from Sunningdale on your way out towards Sunset Beach. All your main sort of thoroughfares are jam-packed, and that means all the suburban routes getting into them are absolutely gridlocked as well. Make sure you've got a ton of time to get out of that Tableview area this morning. Joburg side, crash on the N12 a little bit earlier this morning, just by Craft Roads, causing a big delay coming in from Benoni. Traffic basically sitting from Tom Jones right through that Germiston area. Collision on the Mike 1 South near Houghton Drive, heavy from Buccleuch this morning. No gaps in that traffic all the way down through Woodmead, Sandton, and down through Melrose in towards that Parktown area. Also crash on the N3 North at Modderfontein Road. And in fact, near closer to Linksfield Road at Edenvale, and that stays heavy as you run up from Elan's interchange this morning. And Durban, the rumble strips on the N3 at Pavilion, that madness causing crazy traffic this morning. Just to give you an idea, if you're heading out of Durban towards Pavilion, the queue starts on the N2 South at Umgena Road, all the way to Spaghetti Junction, then all the way over those strips towards Pavilion. Inbound, it's heavy from Paradise Valley, and a crash on the M13 causing quite a big delay from Kloof on your way towards Hillcrest. That crash around the Gillett side. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
South African tourism brings you one of the biggest must-visit events on the global calendar, Africa's Travel Indaba, happening from the 13th to the 15th of May at the Durban ICC. Catch Oliver Dixon live from Africa's Travel Indaba with South African tourism this Wednesday for all the highlights, live updates and more. Take a glimpse of the future of African travel. Africa's Travel Indaba, brought to you by South African Tourism.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the Morning Brief.
6 minutes to 8 on this Tuesday. Let's turn our attention to this story. The Gauteng provincial government has moved to clarify recent concerns over its reported 1.8 billion rand budget underspend, emphasizing that only 85 million rand of that is at actual risk of being forfeited to the National Treasury. This comes after public scrutiny and statements by Premier Panyaza Lesufi regarding the province's budget utilization. Let's speak now to John Sugazi, who's the spokesperson of the Gauteng Treasury, who joins me now. All right, I'm told we're joined by the MEC, Lebogang Maile, actually. MEC, good morning and thank you for your time. So 1.8 billion rand, can you confirm that figure as being the overall underspend by the various departments in Gauteng, and what led to that?
Okay.
MEC, can you hear me? All right, MEC, let me ask you again, can you take us through this underspend of 1.8 billion rand? Where did it come from and what were the reasons for it?
It came from the budget. Good morning.
Good morning.
It came from the budget, as you know, and maybe I must just indicate that about 99% of the budget has been spent. So that's the first thing. The second thing is so that 1.8 constitutes about 1%, and it's a lot of money, of course. And it is in different departments. For instance, health is responsible for about 700 million of that. Education, about 300 million of that. I think the two accounts for about 54% of that. And there are various reasons. So what we were doing yesterday, we're communicating because there was a rumor that the money is going back to National Treasury.
Yeah.
So that's not true, because 1.4 billion of that, it's money that is in our equitable share, meaning we've got a discretion on the money, and it will be allocated to different service delivery, and there will also be a request for rollover. And then the 400 million is conditional grants. 295 million of that we have already applied for a rollover. So if there's money to be lost to National Treasury, it's most likely to be 85 million.
85 million.
So that's exactly.
So before we get deeper into the processes to do the rollovers and reprioritization of the monies that are within your control in terms of the equitable share, help us understand, MEC, why do we have underspend on budgets when we have so many pressing needs? I mean, the departments that you mentioned, health and education, are departments that are constantly under scrutiny because of the pressures on both systems. Why is money not being spent?
Money must be spent by accounting officers. So in terms of the law. And that's why we have already said through the Premier that there are actions we are going to take against accounting officers. And in this case, we're referring to HODs who have not spent. But of course, you have to check what are the reasons, because in certain instances, you find it's money for salaries, the positions have not been filled because certain processes must be followed. In other instances, you find that the project is supposed to be implemented and the land is invaded. So there's various reasons, and I think it will be important to call, especially the big departments, education, health, so that they take you through all that. But when we plan, we don't plan to underspend, and that's why we are communicating it ourselves to say we are concerned about this, because we could be simplistic and say in accounting terms we spend 99%, but that's not the point. The point is the impact that the budget must have on the lives of the people, and that's why we are concerned. If there is 1 cent, 1 rand that's not spent, we will not be happy still. So I think it will be important to probe further and understand because there is not like one reason why money is not spent. And I want to believe that most of the accounting officers will really want to ensure that they spend these resources.
So you're saying that about 1 billion or thereabouts is equitable share, which you'll be able to reprioritize?
1.4 billion.
Yeah. And then you're saying about 400 million is conditional grants, and you are applying to roll over about 300 million or thereabouts of that, leaving about 85 to 100 million. That's still a lot of money, MEC, to be, handed back to National Treasury for a province pressed, again, I say, like Gauteng.
Yes, Thulasizwe. I know you want to create a storm. The reason why it's 294 million, 95, is because the department applied, and they applied through provincial treasury for the rollover. So we don't just receive applications and pass them over. We do our due diligence. And if it doesn't make sense, and we can't justify it to National Treasury, we don't submit it. And that's why the rollovers were for 400 million. But the 85 million didn't make sense to us as in the province, and hence we did not submit it for such, because we don't want malicious compliance. Because I could be speaking to you now, say, no, we have applied for 400 million. The next thing National Treasury comes and say, no, you can't get, you can only get
which conditional grants?
285.
Which conditional grants do this 85 million rand grants relate to?
It's several. In education, in health largely, and I think the biggest is health. It's health. In fact, I think all of it is health. All of it is health because we've spent all the grant in transport. They've actually spent 101% of their grant. And then other second biggest department getting grant is human settlement.
Yeah.
I think they've also spent all of it. So I think it's helped because the 300 million of education is what came from us in the province.
All right. MEC, thank you for your time and for clarifying these matters with us this morning. That is the Gauteng Finance MEC, Lebogang Maile. Brings us to 8:08. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, NPA to appeal Omotosho case ruling and Stats SA to release first quarter employment numbers. Good morning. The NPA has announced it will appeal the Gqeberha High Court judgment in which Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotosho and two others were acquitted. Last month, Omotosho and his two co-accused were acquitted on all charges, including rape, human trafficking and racketeering. This after Judge Irma Skuman in a ruling said the state had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The Eastern Cape Director of Public Prosecutions, Peri Madolo, says the decision to appeal was made after a team of the NPA interrogated the transcript and sourced legal opinion from senior counsel. NPA spokesperson Mtunzi Maga.
We take the view firmly so that the Honorable Judge misdirected herself in applying the law, and there is not much evaluation that went into the evidence of each witness that has been led by the state prosecutors. However, we are constrained in criticizing the judges in public platform like this. We only have one legal avenue, which is an appeal process, in respect of which yesterday, the 12th of May, our counsel sent a request for clarification of factual findings in the judgment because we believe that they are not glaring, they are not clear at all.
The man accused of shooting and killing a Walter Sisulu University student, Sisonke Mbolekwa, is expected to apply for bail at the Mthatha Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape today. The accused allegedly shot and killed Mbolekwa and wounded two other students during a protest at the university premises. Nomzwanele Mgoma reports.
In the previous bail hearing, the 54-year-old man alleged that he was firing warning shots as he felt his life was in danger. The accused said he would be sad to learn that the bullet that killed Sisonke was from his gun. This as the gun he was in possession of belonged to his late father. Students are expected to come in numbers in solidarity with the Mbolekwa family.
The family of a missing patient, 51-year-old Tinana Ntimane, says police and the Provincial Health Department are not doing enough to find her. Ntimane allegedly went missing from the Tonga hospital in Mkomazi, Mpumalanga, a week after she was admitted. Mpumalanga Health MEC Sizakane Manzini, however, says the matter is being investigated.
It's a serious concern, but we are investigating the matter because sometimes if we are talking about a mental patient who's mentally disturbed, then we can talk about maybe missing and all that. So we are looking at what happened. Hence, we are involving the SAPS to assist us in that regard, looking for the patient. So we'll also make the public to know how far away as far as that is concerned.
Economists expect a slight deterioration in the first quarter employment numbers for 2025 today. Stats SA said to release the quarterly labour force survey. Results of the previous survey showed a slight improvement in South Africa's employment landscape, driven by seasonal hiring trends over the festive period. Economist at Nedbank Group Economic Unit, Johannes Koza.
In other words, we expect a small increase in the unemployment rate. One of the reasons being that, the economy at the moment is not growing fast enough to absorb the growing labor force. Another reason is that, it's because of seasonal factors. If you recall, during the first quarter of the year, we have like new entrants into the labor force. We have new graduates coming in.
And finally, International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola says the Afrikaner group that took a decision to leave to the US do not qualify for refugee status. The Trump administration yesterday welcomed 49 Afrikaners it granted refugee status, having deemed them victims of racial discrimination. Addressing the media in Pretoria on the country's preparedness on the main G20 summit in November, Lamola said all citizens in the country are treated equally.
From the perspective of the South African government, in terms of the executive orders that have defined the refugees, the South Africans as refugees, we have stated in the statement we issued on Friday that in line with the international definition, they do not qualify for that status, and there is no persecution of white African or South Africans in South Africa. This has been proven by a number of statistics in our country, including the police reports.
Recapping the top story, the NPA has announced it will appeal the Gqeberha High Court judgment in which Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotosho and 2 others were acquitted. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
With all the recent headlines, it's time for some good news. A 25-year-old man, Tyler, is smiling all the way to the bank. He switched to Outsurance and now saves a whopping 718 Rand a month on the insurance for his 2021 Ford Figo 1.5. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, soccer, Orlando Pirates confirming their head coach Jose Rivero will lead the Buccaneers for the final time when they face Golden Arrows tonight, and will bring you action from the Italian Masters with Coco Gauff going through. She took down Emma Raducanu. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Just a reminder, Table View really heavily backed up. If you're driving out of that part of Cape Town, give yourself a ton of time to get through. Nothing moving. It's all because of the closure of Malabongwe Drive due to the unrest up at Dunoon, and that's forcing traffic onto those alternative routes through Table View. Routes like the West Coast Road, Gee Road, Wood Drive, particularly bad. All trying to exit down onto a heavily congested Bloberg Road. Kuberg Road's badly backed up. Plattercliff Road coming from the Crendell Circle side. Really bad to get across the N7 M7 and down to Kuberg Road. The N7 from Malabongwe all the way down to Plattekloof is heavy as well. Even the Tygerberg Road that comes through Richwood down to Plattekloof, it's just a nightmare through that part of Cape Town this morning. We've also got a crash on Durban's M13. This is between Kloof and Hillcrest this morning by Gillets. That traffic is starting to move through. That's the good news. The N3 at Pavilion Mall, absolutely gridlocked. The queue to go to Pinetown starts on the N2 South at Umgena Road through Spaghetti Junction, then all the way out through, over those rumble strips in towards Pavilion Mall. Joburg side crash, Mike 1 southbound by Houghton Drive. Very heavy both ways this morning. N12 coming out of Benoni stays heavy with a collision scene at Craft Road and a crash on the N3 North at Linksfield Road, badly backing up traffic from Elands Interchange deep in Germiston. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 8 on this Tuesday, this is the Morning Brief on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. The conversation is flowing down multiple streams. We've been talking about the NPA, and that's the big story really of this morning. The NPA saying that they will appeal, they will be seeking to appeal the judgment that acquitted Timothy Omotosho of all the charges that he was facing. And a lot of you are reacting to that. But earlier on, I spoke to Richard Spoor, the attorney in that Listeriosis case. There's been an offer of a settlement for some of the cases that are part of that, class action lawsuit that Richard Spoor and others are working on. Let me just take one or two of your WhatsApp messages that you've sent to me about those matters before going on over to the calls. One person says, another example of blue chip companies getting away with murder. How long does this need to continue before justice is served? And one or two WhatsApp messages that have to do with the Omotosho matter. Someone says NPA is acting a bit delulu, that is delusional here, with their appeal. Already Omotosho is seen as an illegal immigrant in the country who should or could be deported. Do they think he will stay in the country now and wait for this day, for his day in court again? It's a joke, this one, says this person on that WhatsApp line. And then lastly, let me just read this one very quickly. It says, it's going to be a long shot for the NPA to successfully appeal the Omotosho case. The bottom line in the case is the incompetence of the prosecutor or him falling short of in presenting the case of the state through its witnesses. That is a glaring issue which the NPA should instead take lessons going forward. So that's the input there from Ndinga and in Mtata. You can also do the same and send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107 or give me a call on 086 000 2032. I'll take your calls in a moment.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Kirk in Cape Town, you are up first. Good morning to you on this NPA and the Omotosho matter.
Good morning to Thulasizwe. The NPA has proven time and time again to fail us with its lack of prosecution success. In these major cases, it is obviously highlighted because we heard about. My concern is the everyday cases that they should be looking at, that I don't trust that they have the resources to follow through and achieve what our society needs. We're such a violent society with so much crime. And if NPA is where the buck stops, it's very disappointing to see. There's ongoing failures of the system.
But did you hear the examples that Mthunzi was citing, that actually the success rate isn't as low as people believe it to be, and giving the examples, recent examples of convictions, including in the Jocelyn Smith case?
Yes, but the all we are seeing, well, maybe that's the media's fault. If we are only seeing the highlighted failures, I mean, you can even go as far as the big financial case. What is his name? The guy who committed suicide. His case has been
Marcus Jooste. Yeah,
Marcus Jooste, and that saga. I mean, it's been dragging him for so long. It's another example.
Gotcha.
So he might have stats that show some success, but to us, the public, it seems to be an overwhelming it seems to be a very underwhelming institution.
All right, Kirk, thank you for that. And I think part of the other spaces where you see that argument coming through, where there's a lot of criticism, is in the area of prosecuting corruption. I remember a year or 2 years ago where that debate was coming up, and the NPA shared their statistics of successful prosecutions in corruption matters across the country. I suppose we can always hear more about, what's the success rate and what are the factors driving success and failure within the NPA system. Blackie in Durban, good morning, also on the same issue.
Good morning, Tulas. It's Blackie from Durban.
Yes, sir.
I just want to comment on what Advocate Mark just said this morning. When he said their cross-examination of Omotosho in Port Elizabeth was adequate. When even the layman who was sitting there can see that really these prosecutors are struggling. Actually, they don't know what they are doing. On that day, Omotosho spent almost half a day, or even less than 3 hours, they understand. Yet this person is facing a multitude of cases that were there, charges against him, but they failed to prosecute him properly. And now he is saying he is appealing the case. Now, where is it going to help us if he has got that view that they have done adequately at first?
No,
I would agree if they are saying yes, they were. Their prosecution was not, to level it's supposed to be. Yes, I would say next time maybe they are going to improve. But what are they going to improve? He's complaining about the judge. The judge actually was basing his views on the facts presented to her.
So, Blackie, did you watch the Omotosho case through and through? Because part of the disadvantage, at least on my part, was that I didn't see the cross-examination that was found by the judge to have been inadequate. So all we have to go with is the judge's findings as well as the transcript. And that's part of what I wanted to hear from the NPA from day one when they received the transcript, to say when they go through it, are they satisfied with the performance? So I'm keen to hear, did you follow it, and what did you make of the cross-examination? Were the comments of the judge warranted?
I think they were warranted. They were warranted concerning the evidence presented to the judge. The fault at this time is not on the judge. The fault is on the prosecution, on the NPA.
All right. Blackie, thank you for that. That's Blackie in Durban. Let me go to Mafa in George. Good morning to you, Mafa, also on the same issue.
Morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Good. I tend to differ with a lot of people on blaming the NPA.
We love difference. Go ahead.
Get my point. Because, for example, I want to comment on the comments made by Moro, something like that.
Moro, yes.
I think they were misplaced because I don't think the delay in prosecution is caused by the NPA. It's the NPA has got no say whatsoever in the processes in the courts. All that they did, if the magistrate says takes 3 years to complete a case, you cannot blame the NPA. That's my view. And at the same time, when a matter goes before the courts, the NPA do their best in defending, because you should understand that, the NPA is there to protect our constitution. They're going there and they're doing their best. But when the judge or the magistrate or anybody so ever sees issues in a different way, that does not stop the NPA from appealing. They have rights to appeal as per the constitution. Yeah. Number one, it also shows, the judgment also shows that, it shows the independence of the judiciary. Nobody influences it. But why not allowing them to appeal if they feel they want to appeal, so that, the matter is ventilated so well? Yeah. And because I feel the NPA did their best.
Okay.
You
believe they did?
Sorry?
You believe they did their best, do you?
No, I believe they did their best, but, at times the judiciary lets down the NPA. I think we should understand that, because...
With the prosecutor that even Tunzi Maga, even in his own interaction with me this morning, saying that there was a finding that was disturbing in relation to a senior prosecutor not knowing what the full definition of rape in our law is. Does that, in your view, represent doing their best?
No, that one I accept that. Yeah. Probably they assigned somebody who was, or it can also be two ways. We are dealing with the Eastern Cape here. Let's understand it. And that's, in my view, the province where corruption is the highest. You understand?
Is it?
There could be some issues, and especially, I'm not trying to be xenophobic, yes. But when Nigerians are involved, there is an exchange of money. We see it here in the Western Cape. People, they are selling drugs every day, and the police are not doing anything.
Mafa, thank you for that. Yeah, no, got you. Mafa and George there. Also, always cautious, of course, about generalizations. But I take the point that he is making, that he suspects that here and there could be issues of corruption. That's Mafa there in George. I'll make more time and take more of your calls a bit later on.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
21 minutes after 8. Parenting a teenager has never been easy, but when that teen is grappling with emotional or behavioral struggles, the challenge can feel overwhelming. In South Africa, where family dynamics vary widely and mental health stigma still looms large, many parents are quietly facing these battles alone. But support is finally growing, one conversation and one support group at a time. Let's speak to Thulasizwe Simelane, who is a support group leader at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning, Thulasizwe. And the reason we are saying that support is growing, one conversation, one support group at a time, is because of this new initiative that you have. Tell us about this online mental health support group for parents of teenagers. I believe it had its first meeting this Monday. How did that go, and what are the aims and objectives?
Good morning to you and the listeners. The aim of the group actually is just to get parents who are struggling with their children's behavior together and share experiences and support each other. Yesterday was our first meeting, which went well with a lot of anxiety from parents. However, I believe they now know that there's support out there for them.
Turning to a support group online suggests that you've picked up that there's a need here, that many parents need that kind of support and a safe space for them to share experiences.
The support group, choosing the online was more better because it allows us to be able to connect with not just my area, because I'm from Soweto, so it will just cover Soweto. But now having an online one would cover everyone across the country.
Yeah. So how does it play out? What happens in these support groups? Is it open and safe space for people to just share their experiences around the behavior of their children, and then do they then get some kind of counseling and assistance?
So it's a therapeutic group. So it is a support group where we then refer parents. We maintain confidentiality where everybody is allowed to share in a safe space. However, if there are pressing matters that will require a parent to then seek therapy, and the group is unable to foster those, then we will refer.
And how much demand did you find is there for this group? I know that it was the first meeting, and I suppose it will continue to grow as more and more people hear about it. But how much demand did you find is already there?
Surprisingly enough, I thought the demand was higher than the outcome of the people who contacted me to be part of the group. Because on a daily basis, even coming to the reasons I decided to start the group was because of, on a daily basis, I speak to professionally, personally, parents are constantly raising their concerns of not being able to cope with the challenges that they experience with their teens. But I think when it comes to help, now here's the help, people are still a bit resistant. I'm not sure if it's because of fear, because some of the parents that had initially been contacted me did not join the meeting yesterday. And it was, I reminded them that when the time to join the group came, they did not. It was just a few, and I see that there's still a struggle with, now the help is here, let's now access the help.
Yeah. So from the work that you do, Tselane, tell me about some of the struggles that many of the parents who reach out to you face in raising teenagers, particularly teenagers who've got behavioral problems.
The main concern one is parents complain about children changing when they go to high school or from grade 6, 7 and the transition. So it's the bed chatting, it's behavior of like some of the stuff that was raised yesterday. It's grade dropping, substance experimenting, bullying, and the child would be the one who's bullying other children, not just the child experiencing bullying. So those are some of just the challenges that some of the parents are experiencing.
And in your reading, to what extent are these problems that parents face at this stage of their children's lives connected to, the dynamics in society, the reality of the structures of families, absent parents here and there, situations where parents are stretched in terms of the demands on them and burnout and things like those?
Actually, burnout is one of the main ones, and there is now a disconnect because most of the children don't have parental observation most of the time. So the high demand of work, there's now a disconnect in terms of the parents, grandparents used to previously be there when the parents are working. So that whole thing has disconnected now. So leaving the child to be unobserved most of the time when they are able to then experiment with certain things that our parents are not there when they experiment with.
So lastly then, Tselane, it sounds like a great initiative, and I do believe that with time it will possibly grow. How do people connect with you to be part of this support group that you've started?
The number to contact so that you can then
not your personal number, please. Yeah, we don't want you to be trolled. Yeah.
It's the number that I'm using for the support group. It's 065 929 6242.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. That's Tselane Makheta, who is support group leader at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, telling us about an online support group for parents of teenagers.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Let's go to this match that's happening tonight. Orlando Pirates confirming their head coach Jose Rivero will lead the Buccaneers for the final time when they face Golden Arrows. In a statement, the chairman, Dr. Ivan Khoza, revealed Rivero had requested an early release after signing with the new club, and the timing was kept under wraps until after the Nedbank Cup final. Mamelodi Sundowns ladies goalkeeper Andile Dlamini credits team effort for maintaining the number 1 spot in the first quarter of their 2025 Hollywood Bet Super League campaign. Sundowns prepare to face Richmond United on Sunday. Dlamini shares her expectations.
Richmond is not an easy team to play, but we hope to do our best on the day to get the results. Looking forward to this week's training session, because that will actually tell us how we have to tackle Richmond's game, because the coaches plan accordingly and depending on the game that we are playing. So Richmond is not going to be an easy game, but we always look forward to a challenge, because no game is easy in the whole bit.
Elsewhere, Real Madrid boss Carlo Ancelotti will leave the Spanish club at the end of the season to become the new national team coach of Brazil. Ancelotti won 15 trophies across 2 spells as Real manager, and last season led Los Blancos to a Champions League and La Liga double. And finally, South Africa's most decorated long-distance runner, Stephen Makoka, is working hard to strike a balance between his new role as a coach and his ongoing career as an athlete. At 40, Makoka has been appointed as a coach by Tshwane University of Technology and is fully embracing the responsibility, and is coaching athletes across distances ranging from 5,000 meters and is currently preparing runners for the Comrades Marathon.
I'm coaching from 5,000 to Comrades for now. I'm doing all of those, but basically track guys focus on track guys, cross country guys focus on cross country, marathons focus on marathons. So I don't want to put them all together. So I always structure that. Like even yesterday, I had a very special block for Comrades guys. Some of them struggled to wake up today because Comrades is close. So yeah, I'm doing from 5,000 to Comrades.
And that's a wrap of the Morning Brief. Sport, more around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the NPA says they filed papers requesting the judge in the Timothy Omotosho trial clarify her factual findings with the Registrar of the High Court in Gqeberha. The NPA is appealing the High Court judgment by Judge Ermas Kuman relating to the case against Timothy Omotosho and his 2 co-accused. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge will resume this morning with a ruling from the tribunal. And the CEO of civic organisation AfriForum, Kali Kriel, says the organisation had nothing to do with the decision of the 49 white Afrikaners who left South Africa and acquired refugee status in the United States. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning, kicking off in Ekurhuleni, eastern side of Joburg still heavy with this collision on the N12. Joburg bound at Craft Road's been with us all morning. Backlogs into Benoni territory. Also crashes before Galulis on the N12 and R24 causing some more delays there. R21 away from the airport heavy up towards NGN Services in Tembisa. The roadworks now just north of the Bupsfontein exit. Durban's N3 still jam-packed to get over those rumble strips at Pavilion. The backlog to get out of Durban, if you're on the N2, starts at Inanda Road all the way to Spaghetti Junction, then all the way out on that N3 over those strips. Coming inbound is pretty heavy as well. Cape Town Tableview is a nightmare. Dunoon's Malabongwe Drive is closed, limiting the exits out of Tableview this morning to either Marine Drive or Bloberg Road. Both of those are heavy. Inside Tableview, routes like Gee Road and Wood Drive are heavy. Kuberg Road going north to Bloberg Road's bad. The N7 south to Plattekloof, and Plattekloof Road from De Crandall Circle side. Major delays to get across the N7 and into that traffic into the Tableview area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndawuleng Lechela. Ndawuleng, let's start with Tiger Brands and that Listeriosis case and the offer of a settlement.
All right, Thulas. Now, Tiger Brands has taken a big step towards resolving that 2017-2018 Listeriosis outbreak litigation by making formal settlement offers to victims. The settlement applies to 3 categories of victims: those who contracted Listeriosis, dependents of those who lost their lives, and guardians of affected dependents. Now, without admitting liability, Tiger Brands has agreed to pay proven compensatory damages, and this in line with the Consumer Protection Act. This development marks a significant step in the class action, which is being conducted in 2 stages to determine the company's liability and potential compensation. Now, the law firm representing the victims, Richard Spoor Inc., has welcomed the settlement. The viewing it as a positive step towards corporate accountability and justice for the victims. The firm's attorneys will begin presenting the offer to qualifying claimants with individual damages to be assessed and reviewed by the High Court for Fairness. Now, despite this breakthrough, challenges remain, including identifying and locating victims who have not yet come forward. Tiger Brand maintains that it has sufficient insurance coverage to manage the claims. In addition to this, the company also released a trading update. They've said that they expect earnings to increase by as much as 25%, and this being driven by its business performance.
And in the financial sector, Ndawuleng, tell me about the FSCA. You're saying that they've hit 91 fund managers with a hefty fine. Why?
That's right, Thulas. And the FSCA really has these big financial services companies, these banks, under a magnifying glass. They've imposed a 3 million rand fine on the firm for failing to comply with anti-money laundering and terrorism financing regulations. An investigation revealed that the company didn't adequately verify its clients' identities and lacked a robust risk management system. Now, 91 has agreed to address these issues and pay the fine. As part of the settlement, 500,000 of this fine will be suspended for 3 years if the company demonstrates improved compliance and risk management practices during the period. The FSCA has emphasized the importance of effective anti-money laundering and terrorist financing controls, particularly for financial institutions with significant risk exposure. 91, of course, not the only firm in the financial services sector being dealt a blow. Recently, we've heard of Absa, Standard Bank, and Capitec being hit with fines. And this comes as South African regulators intensify their efforts to enforce FICA compliance, aiming to remove the country from the Financial Action Task Force grey list.
Lastly, Ndawuleng, what kind of a day can we expect on this Tuesday in the markets?
The local markets likely to start the day in the green. It's a busy day on the local front. We have results out from Bytes, and Exoro has sealed a manganese deal. We also have unemployment data out this morning, so lots moving markets today. The Rand will also be tracking local news ahead of the jobs print. The Rand pretty steady at 18.26 to the dollar. Meanwhile, in the US, futures are in negative territory. Some concerns seeping in ahead of the inflation print that's out this afternoon. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks mostly in positive territory, but we are seeing a bit of a pullback as traders continue to digest the US-China trade deal.
All right, Ndawuleng, thank you for that. By the way, I can hear it's busy in your background. You're a woman with things to do, with business to handle, and places to see, and people. You know what I mean? I always envy you when I hear that in the background. Right, that's Ndawuleng Lichela there. She's kept you updated on all things business, the markets, and the economy over the last 3 hours.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
You are listening to The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let me take one or two of your voice notes. In the meantime, let me go to this one. People responding to the conversation we had about the NPA and their decision to appeal in the Timothy Omotosho acquittal. In fact, quite a number of them. So let me be fair and allow you to, ventilate your opinions.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. This is me. You might think the NPA and also SEPS doesn't work, Wait up until they want you or they put you behind bars. That's the day that you realize that they are working.
Hey, Thulas, if you've got a chance, man, to ask Mtunzi, because another section of the NPA, or is it Home Affairs, that wants to declare Omotosho undesirable? So they want to appeal. So what are they going to do? What if he gets deported? Are they now going to have to extradite him? It's so confusing. It's like the other hand of government does not know what the other hand is doing. Thanks, Bongi here.
Yeah, Bongi, I mean, that did strike me as well. And I think another listener raised it as well to say, what happens once he's been, deported? Because he's being, right now, he's basically been declared an undesirable person and his appeal on that has not been upheld. So what happens? Will we sit with another deportation situation? Stembiso in Durban, let me take your call now. You also want to weigh in on this Timothy Omotosho issue.
Yes, Thulas, and thanks for taking my call.
Sure, please go ahead.
I mean, I think NPA yenza kahle to appeal the judgment. I mean, because it was just one white female judge, who found which NPA did not do, what they were supposed to do. And now the circumstance is different, like you get the CGE and others and the community coming on board as, the friends of the court, things are going to be done differently. And remember, this is not about the NPA, this is about the victims. And I can assure you, Thulas, that if these were white young women, we would not be having this conversation. So let us think about the victims and just focus on that.
Do you really think so?
And demonizing the NPA does not bring justice to the women.
So, Stembiso, do you really believe that the findings have something to do with who the judge was as opposed to principles of law?
Yes, it is about who the judge was because, she would have intervened. She is a white woman who does not have solidarity for these young women. And if it was a black man, South Africa would be saying it is an incompetent judge. Because she's white and female, she's suddenly, competent. I mean, it's just one judge.
But so there have been many instances where black judges have actually made
Well, in this, we're talking about
findings.
this particular instance.
Yes,
that young women were raped and it was a white judge. And if it was white women they were raped, we'd be telling a completely different story.
All right, Stembiso in Durban. Thank you for that. That's Stembiso calling from Durban. Let me take a call from Zola in Bloemfontein. Zola, good morning.
Good morning, Thulas. Thulas, I just want to talk about the money which has been taken back by Treasury or rather by Department. If they have so much money unused, why don't they pay ESCOM or the municipality, Johannesburg Metro, so that ESCOM can be paid? And then ESCOM will be able to give us a better service. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, in Mangaunga, I heard that about 400 million has been taken, it was unused. Why don't they pay Val Central Water Board so that you can get better service? Lastly, when unions are making a salary request demand increment, maybe asking for 10%, no, there's no money, but there's money which is unused. And look at the service delivery, which is so poor in all provinces, but there is money which is unused. Can they please do the right thing?
I get your frustration and wanting a solution, Zola. But part of the difficulty, I suppose, is some of this money is from the equitable share specifically designated for the provincial level. As you know, that there's money that will be, issued out from the national budget that goes to the provinces, money that goes to municipalities, and municipalities needing to raise their own revenue. So it appears that you can't simply move money around. The equitable share within the province, you could divert it following the right procedures and use it for something else. But when you're dealing with the conditional grants that would come, for instance, from a specific department that says, I don't know, fix the water reticulation, it's meant for that. And if you don't use it for that, you have to give it back unless they give you the permission to roll it over to the next year.
Okay. Lastly, when it comes to the NPA, I don't have a problem with them appealing, but we have your Billy Downers and other prosecutors been there for years and years. Why don't they train these young prosecutors? Because we don't just have to blame them and say they're incompetent. They also need proper training. Because during our days when I was working in court, there was training. They will train you and sometimes you go to court with a prosecutor and you just observe.
Zola, thank you for that. And the other side of that story, of course, is that in this particular case, the prosecutors involved are quite senior. So, I mean, it's experience as well as training that I believe the NPA undertakes from time to time. Gary in Bloemfontein and Putana in Rosebank, I'll come to you in a moment on the NPA, but I wanted to play one or two voice notes. The first one has to do with the license card printing machine that was broken. We're told it's now been fixed, at least for now, but there's a huge backlog of some 750,000 licenses that have not been printed over the last 3 months.
Yes. This Department of Transport spokesperson is really blowing smoke. I mean, so it took them 4 years to find a suitable candidate. Then when the process is ongoing, then they still bungle the process, and there is some irregularities in appointing that service provider. Now 5 years later, he wants to come and spin us stories. It's just totally incompetence and unacceptability on their part. Mario in Cape Town.
Yeah, Mario, I think many people will say that the turnaround times in these processes, procurement processes in South Africa, is simply unacceptable. That period, time frame that you're outlining, the findings by the Auditor General were sometime last year, I think in the second half of last year. Now getting to the point where they need a declaration by a court on whether or not to annul that appointment of that service provider to print these driver's licenses is where things stand at the moment. But all of these processes, they just seem to take an inordinate amount of time for them to unfold. And in the process, you and I are completely inconvenienced by it all. Gary in Bloemfontein, good morning. On the NPA this morning?
Good morning, Tula. I don't want to sound negative, but the only... like one guy said on your voice note, the NPA will go after you, the low-hanging fruit, if you haven't got money to fight them. But when they come up against people like Omotosho that's got millions to burn, with top-tier lawyers, not only South Africa, it's world over, which is fine. But they just do that for their stats. They go for the low-hanging fruits for their stats. Okay, just one last thing. I'm very privileged to live in Mangaung, but the driver's license just because there ain't no traffic cops. There's no traffic cops employed here, so...
You shouldn't have to, though. You shouldn't have to, though. I mean, you shouldn't have to rely on the lack of law enforcement. You know, is your license expired?
No.
It's not.
You don't see a traffic cop unless it's a church service.
Gary in Bloemfontein, thank you for that. That's Gary there.
Right, cool.
Talking about two different issues, but in the last part they're talking about the issues of lack of law enforcement. I laugh and chuckle about it, but I wonder to what extent it's a serious issue. What's happening with law enforcement in areas around Mangaung? Is Gary right in his assessment that you will not see cops? And if he is, then there's a problem there, because law enforcement should be continuous, not only when there's a problem or during the Easter holidays or the festive season. Putana in Rosebank, good morning, also on the NPA.
Good morning, my brother. You know, we are reaping the consequence of deployment of incompetent ANC lawyers, comrades. The NPA are ANC deployees. They are incompetent. How many cases did they lost? How many? A string of cases, and they've got a nerve to ask the judge to explain herself. Did they explain when they abandoned Pala case? Did they explain to us? I'm so furious with these incompetent people, and there's no consequences for them. Now we have to sympathize because the Iran case have lost it. How many cases they have lost?
But Putana, we don't know that these are ANC deployed cadres. We have no way of knowing that, because the way that I understand the NPA recruitment to work, they will have the aspirant prosecutor program through which many young people with legal qualifications will come through. So that assertion, I hear your frustration. But
there's a deployment committee. There's a deployment committee of the ANC that are deploying those people there. There's a deployment committee. We have just forgotten about it. Ask Judge Zondo. He'll tell you about it.
Yeah. So you're saying it permeates all the way to the operational levels of prosecutors on the front lines of presenting these cases.
Exactly.
All right.
Deploying comrades there that don't do their work, basic things. Then we're sitting here and we're complaining about them.
Yeah.
And there's no consequences for that. No consequences.
Gotcha. Butana in Rosebank, thank you for that. Of course, the NPA says they're still continuing with the review of the performance and professionalism and even ethical conduct of their team in that particular case. So important to put that through. And Mthunzi Maga was saying that report can be expected sometime in June or thereabouts. Loyiso in the South Coast, good morning. You want to talk to me about our one and only driver's license card printing machine in the country that breaks and we fix it, and then it breaks and we fix it.
Yes, good morning. I listened to the gentleman when he was talking about the processes involved in securing a new contract and stuff like that. What I do know, what I sense is a lack of political will, because even as I'm seated here, I can see way around what he was talking about. PFMA allows them to piggyback on an existing contract that offers a service similar to what they need to procure.
Yeah.
They can piggyback on the existing contract for the printing of the ID cards and revert back to the old system where the license and the ID were in the same document. Like the back side mentions your license and
the front side is your national ID card. Yeah.
Instead of having two cards that will expire every now and then, you just have one card that expires every now and then. That serves both people.
Yeah, that's a major policy change though, Loyiso, because you would need to, I suspect you would need to then commit to it going forward instead of it being a temporary, fix while you're trying to figure out how to appoint a service provider to print license cards. So are you calling for a permanent shift in policy such that we use the contract that's there and have that system where your ID on the one side is ID, on the other side is your driver's license?
Yes, it's either obviously there could be a non-performance clause in the contract that they can use to opt out, or work on this new plan for when this one ends, they just implement a combined system. They don't have to go back to tender.
Yeah. All right. Loyiso in the South Coast. Harking back to a time when, I don't know about you, but my first ID was an ID book and it wasn't a card, right? So, yeah, your license used to be there somewhere among the pages. And I think, 13 pages of the ID book, the green ID book. And you would have something that's sealed if you don't have a driver's license. But if you do, then they would unseal it and then they would insert your driver's license in there. I'd even forgotten about that there was once a system like that. Speaking of driving and licenses, someone who's licensed to give us an update is Rob Byrne.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good news if you're driving from the Ekurhuleni side of Gauteng into Joburg. The crash on the N12 westbound of Craft Road has now been cleared. Pretty heavy on the R21. The roadworks moving just north of the Bopsfontein exit towards the Tembisa engine services. Very heavy queues leaving the airport on your way to Pretoria this morning. The Mike 1 from Boyson's up into Crown. That looks pretty sluggish from Parktown through to Sandton under pressure. And a crash on the side of the N1 North before William Mandela. Slowing traffic coming through from Randburg. N1 South still pretty busy through Midrand. Queues down as far as the New Road exit. Durban's N3. Again, it's been a really jam-packed morning over those rumble strips. Big delays going from Paradise Valley into Spaghetti Junction and outbound. Only queue on the N2 South from Umgeni Road through Spaghetti Junction and then on the N3 towards Pavilion. M13 taking a big overflow as well between Westville and Sherwood. Crash at Cato Ridge on your way down to Durban, so queues back from Camperdown. And if you're on your way to the airport, a collision after Gateway between Gateway and Sabaya, and there's some queuing pressure there. The big news out of Cape Town this morning, very heavy still out of Tableview. you. The Malabongwe option remains closed at Dunoon, so routes like Gee Road, Wood Drive, very heavy down to a very heavily backed up Bloberg Road, down to Kuberg Road. The queue to get in on Platticliff Road starts right back into Crandall Circle area, and the West Coast Road Marine Drive jam-packed from Sunningdale outbound towards Sunset Beach. Make sure you got plenty of time to get through Tableview. It's heavy. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Slipper Day is on the 30th of May, and I'm helping to make big dreams come true. When you support Slipper Day, you're helping Reach for a Dream bring smiles and joy to children facing tough illnesses. Do you want to help too? You can visit reachforadream.org.za to find out more about Slipper Day. Let's do it for the dreamers! This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene, along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
South African tourism brings you one of the biggest must-visit events on the global calendar, Africa's Travel Indaba, happening from the 13th to the 15th of May at the Durban ICC. Catch Oliver Dixon live from Africa's Travel Indaba with South African tourism this Wednesday for all the highlights, live updates and more. Take a glimpse of the future of African travel. Africa's Travel Indaba, brought to you by South African Tourism.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me take a call from Sillo in Bombela. Good morning to you, Sillo. You want to respond to what Butana had to say a bit earlier on?
Yes, thank you very much, Sillo Shai from Bombela.
Sure.
Yes, I want to respond to Butana. Butana is too excited and attacking the ANC unnecessary. Even a kindergarten attendee will know that legal bureaucrats grow within the legal fraternity and become what they are today. There's nothing to do with deployment there. He is just embarrassing himself. He's very economic with the truth. When an elderly person is messing up, we don't say he's lying. We're just saying he's economic with the truth. But in terms of Omotosho, the two cases have nothing to do with each other. The issue of documentation and the issue of the alleged cases that he was facing of rape and other things. So we are supporting the NPA as South Africans that they must appeal this particular case, and then this case must come to its finality and satisfy everybody. We cannot allow these foreigners who come to our country illegally continue to do what they are doing and just fold our arms. If he's deported, we'll go and fetch him like we do with other people. Thank you.
That's always difficult though, Silo, but thank you. I appreciate the point that you are making. That's Silo in Bombela there. Let me take a few of your voice notes. Let me take this one. It has to do with the licensing situation in the country.
Good morning, Thulas. This is Tobego in Mchwalum. On the issue of license cards, I'm thinking of a thing where we can have virtual license cards. We can have these things in our phones now. Instead of them printing it, you can have it virtually on your phone, just like you have those banking cards virtually. Then it can be used from there. I think that would be much cheaper than procuring this machine or refixing and everything. Thank you.
Thulasizwe, good morning. It's Clinton here. Thulasizwe, we have an absolute pathetic, useless government. It can't be that we have in this day and age only one single individual machine that prints license cards. I've been waiting for the last 5 months for my card. Really, this government, sometimes I ask myself, what have we done to deserve this useless, pathetic government? Really, this is absolutely beyond comprehension.
Let me take one more of that. I can sense the frustration, and understandably so.
Good morning, Thulas. Thulas, on the issue of the license machine not working, our government is failing us big time. Because if you go to other countries, for instance, in Lesotho, they won't take that story. For instance, if you introduce like your expired license and a receipt, they won't take that story, my brother. You will have to negotiate your way out, or they can arrest you. Thanks from Andil in Willowville, Eastern Cape.
All right, thank you for that. Let me end it off with Lodwick in Limpopo. Short and sharp for me, please. Go ahead, Lodwick. We've got just a minute.
Okay, good morning, Thulas. I understand I had Budana and there was another guy coming to defend the ANC deployment staff in NPA. My view is that, okay, ANC, we are all frustrated as majority in this country because ANC has agreed. They negotiated this constitution that is frustrating everyone. When we talk, for instance, when we talk about freedom, we're talking about land ownership. The moment you own your land, all right, and the constitution is in line with that, then everything will be just. But now, because this is an unjust constitution, everyone is frustrated now. The problem is this constitution that we're having in this country that is praised.
So you feel it's not fit for purpose?
Not adopted by anyone.
You're saying it's not fit for purpose, is the constitution?
It's not fit for purpose because it doesn't serve the interest of the majority in this country.
All right.
All right. The negotiations that the ANC had with apartheid regime is what brought us here now. Everyone is frustrated.
Lodwick, let's leave it there for this morning. I'll encourage you to take part. I believe right now there's actually the annual review of the Constitution for which Parliament requires your participation as a citizen. I would strongly encourage that you take part, not just Lodwick, but all of us. Let's be involved in that way. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. But don't go anywhere. More quality news, current affairs, and talk programming continuing after the news at 9, and it will be the talking point, and this morning with Oliver Dixon.
In our top stories, another breakthrough in missing journalist case and Stats SA to release first quarter employment figures. Good morning. Police in Mpumalanga have made another breakthrough in the case of the disappearance of journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zotwa Mdluli after 3 more suspects were arrested this morning. The couple went missing on the 18th of February. Calvin Dludla has more.
According to police, the 3 suspects were arrested in the early hours of Tuesday. The suspects, aged